Okay, good morning, everyone. Let's have at it. We're in the Wednesday edition of Reality Check. It is the something like the eve of New Year's Eve edition of Reality Check. We're midday, midweek here on this sunny but frigid Wednesday morning on the home of Black Talk Media. It's WURD 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Welcome to the Wednesday show for your daily dose of public affairs, your politics and public policy, all here wrapped in one on Reality Check. I'm your host, also your executive producer and creator of Reality Check, Charles Ellison. You can reach me on Twitter.com. I'm at Twitter.com, at Ellison Report, hashtag Reality Check. Also, my email address, let's just throw that out there too. You know, just trying to get a fresh start to the new year and get some more ideas and tips and fresh perspectives. Also, any information that we may not be aware of, kind of get the new year off to a better start and a more productive start. C. Ellison at WURDradio.com. That is C. Ellison, CELLISON, at WURDradio.com. And once again, hashtag Reality Check, at Ellison Report, and check out some of the latest content, latest analysis at our companion magazine for this program at the B Note, THEBE Note.com. You can subscribe for that too, the BNote.com. We got a new series that's actually building up. We kind of piloted it, test ran it. It's the Proximity series. That's also going to be aligned with this program, and that will be on our companion magazine, the B Note, THEBE Note.com. There's a wonderful essay, a wonderful analysis from our contributor, Dr. G.S. Potter. She's also contributing editor for the B Note, and the name of that is Socialism Shouldn't Be a Dirty Word. So sort of opened my eyes and kind of enlightened me to the word socialism and really what that means. You know, she gets into I think a lot of people out there should read it because there's a lot of confusion around the term socialism. So she deconstructs that, debunks some of that in the latest at the BENote.com. All right, joining us now, as she does every week, every time, around the same time every Wednesday, is Sojourner Ehebi. She is the Vote Beat reporter assigned to WURD Radio. She's been covering the 2020 elections. She was covering the 2020 elections as it was happening, and now she's been doing quite a bit of post-mortem analysis, the aftermath of the 2020 election, specifically how the 2020 election was in Philadelphia, how voters behaved, how they acted, what sorts of trends did she see? What is her reporting telling her? She joins us by phone here on Reality Check. And phone lines are open. There, in case you have any questions for Sojourner, you want to add a little bit more texture to that conversation, 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. Sojourner, good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you, Charles?
All right, good, good. So some of your latest reporting is, you know, we focused on the wards last week when we had a conversation that experienced low voter turnout.
Mm-hmm.
We looked at those wards. You were looking at wards, especially in North Philly, deep, and we've known this for quite some time. Still saw that trend even in the 2020 election, in an election as big, as major and significant as the 2020 election. You have now pivoted, and you're looking at wards, or you've looked at wards that had the highest turnout in Philadelphia. What are those wards?
Absolutely. So there was actually one that kind of knocked all of them out of the park, and that's the 9th Ward, which covers Chestnut Hill and a section of Mount Airy. They've just historically always had really, really high turnout. They were at 80% this year, and so as we know, Philly had 66% citywide, and then statewide we had like close to 70%. So they're well above both of those, you know, turnout averages, and they tend to be every year, or every election cycle, rather.
Right, right. Who represents those wards, or who represents them? Right.
Yeah, so a part of the ward is in Councilmember Cindy Bass's district, so that's District 8. And then Christopher Rabb, State Rep Chris Rabb, he also is the ward leader there in the 9th Ward. So he sort of splits his responsibilities between, you know, being state representative and also being a ward leader there.
Did you, you know what, before I get into some more questions about sort of the role of policymakers or influencers like Representative Rabb and also Councilwoman Bass. You know what, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about those earlier wards we talked about, the wards with low voter turnout, because I think I forgot to ask you last week, who are the public officials, who are the ward leaders? I don't know if you had a chance to explore that, or the elected officials who oversee those wards with the low voter turnout, just to kind of make a comparison or a contrast here.
Absolutely. So in the 27th, where we were seeing that low turnout, as we were saying, it was due to all the students in University City leaving, but there's a big portion in the Southwest and West, which Councilwoman Jamie Gauthier overlooks, her district
That's
overlooks,
right. That's
where
right.
we actually
Okay.
saw a net increase. So she did an amazing job in collaboration with State Rep-elect Rick Krajewski in terms of kind of turning out that vote.
Okay, got it. So, and when we go to those wards, going back to those wards, or that ward, that area with the highest voter turnout, did you have an opportunity to talk to either Representative Rabb or Councilwoman Bass? I mean, they're not just elected officials, but they're ward leaders and other ward leaders. I don't know if that you spoke to. What sorts of roles did they play in helping generate enthusiasm or in helping mobilize the vote?
Absolutely. What was so interesting, actually, about the 9th is that the most impactful elected officials actually didn't seem to be like the council members and the folks that are sort of like at the top of the hierarchy, if you will. It was really the committee people in that district, they're responsible for like their specific division within the actual wards. We have the ward, and then you have like 17 divisions within the 9th ward. And so I spoke to several committee people there to sort of figure out what was going on and why has this been sort of like a very successful ward. And there were sort of a lot of different things that were contributing to this. Obviously, it's a very wealthy part of the city, so folks tend to be very like well-educated, very aware of what's going on. They have time and resources to come out and vote. There's not a lot of those same barriers that we were seeing in places like Kensington and Southwest, where there were like literacy issues, folks contending with poverty and like things like that just make it harder to have time, and urgency to make, voting a priority.
Yeah, no, that definitely is the case. I mean, you have a tale of two cities within Philadelphia.
Right.
One tale and one side of the city where it is rather affluent. It's always been affluent. That hasn't much changed in terms of that composition. There's even in some respects, it's been that way for so long. It's almost like that part of Philadelphia, like you mentioned, Chestnut Hill. It's like old money at this stage. And so it's pretty much an entrenched way of living on that side. But it's that tale of two cities. And then the other side of the city, or pockets of the city, that we continue to see languishing. The only way that it does tend to, at some point, get an upgrade or become affluent is when gentrification hits. And so, and that definitely, that's from what you're saying, that informs voter behavior in many ways. I'm real curious too, are there conversations about that among the various ward leaders, the committee people, the elected officials? I mean, are they talking about that, about how like those differences in income and literacy and and quality of life, how that drives voter turnout? I mean, are we starting to see more of an intentional and urgent conversation, and gearing up for next election cycle, or at this stage they just don't care? It's just, oh, well, this is just how Philadelphia is, and we'll just have to work with what we've got the next time.
Are you referring to the ward leaders specifically within the 9th, or?
You know what? I'd be real curious to kind of see if, let's just talk about all those wards, right, that you have been talking to or exploring, both the ones with the high voter turnout and the ones with the low voter turnout. I mean, are they, or even the wards or the committee people, ward people in the high voter turnout areas, are they even still concerned about those disparities in terms of income and education and literacy as well, because they understand that at the end of the day, they need the whole, especially for these big consequential national elections or statewide elections, they need the whole city to turn out. They just can't have half the city turning out.
Right, absolutely. I think there's the people that are sort of most concerned about the disparities tend to be the people who represent that ward. So, of course, like when you're a committee person, in your ward, that's your first priority. But I don't think I didn't see, at least any indication that, like, say, people in the ninth are thinking about, like, disparities in other wards. But what I will say is that they're very aware that there's not really anything exceptional about, like, their high turnout. I think that was one of the things that was that came up in a lot of our conversations when I was asking them about their high turnout. Like, one of the committee women, she was saying, actually, I feel like with all of the resources that we have and considering how wealthy our our ward is, like, our turnout really should be higher, one. And two, she was saying how sometimes it's a little skewed the way that we report on the ninth because it's actually not a super huge ward compared to other wards. So there are tons of wards where there are just way more voters, but they're not going to, the more voters you have, like, the percentage is going to skew differently because if you have, like, 10 people in a ward and they all vote, that's like 100%. You have 10,000 people in a ward and 5,000 people vote, then that's going to say you had a 50% turnout. But that was still, like, on a number level, way more people that voted in that ward than the ward that everyone is saying has 100% turnout.
Yeah.
So it's also a question of scale.
Yeah, I hear you on that. We're talking to Sojourner Ahebe. She is our Vote Beat reporter, the Vote Beat reporter assigned to WURD. Go to votebeat.org for more information. And at Sojourner Ahebe as well on social media, on Twitter. She joins us here every week here on Reality Check around the same time to talk about or to unpack what happened during the 2020 election cycle. More specifically in Philadelphia, what that was like, and also looking at the aftermath, how people are reacting to it, the people who are the influencers, the folks who were the organizers, the mobilizers during this election, what they are saying. And so we also have the phone lines open in case you have a question or you want to participate in this discussion in some way. You have another perspective that we haven't thought of. 215-634-8065. Toll free. It is 866-361-0900 here during our conversation with Sojourner Ahebe. Sojourner, what are people saying as far as, like, what they could have done better, right? Even in the high voter turnout wards, was there any reflection on that? What we could have done better, as we look at kind of we're in a sort of retrospective kind of stance here. Any conversation about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the pandemic still had a huge impact on sort of the ability that, like, committee people were able to, because traditionally in the ninth they say committee people will knock on, like, their 600 plus, constituent doors within their individual division and, like, talk to them and distribute, like, a handwritten letter. Personal calls are really big in the ninth, and they said a lot of that had to kind of be turned to the virtual scene and the advent of the pandemic, and committee people there, the community already skews is just disproportionately older, and that's true of the committee people as well. So it became kind of a health risk to be going out to people's homes and then expecting other people to, open their doors when we're dealing with, like, this global health crisis. So that was one of the things that they said, like, they couldn't really control, but they, like, if that had been different, maybe turnout would have been a little bit higher. And I think there was also just kind of generally a critique of, like, the Philadelphia Democratic Party. A lot of the committee people there, including a former committee person who ran for Auditor General Nina Ahmad, she was saying how there wasn't a lot. She felt that, like, the Democratic Party didn't do a lot to inform the most vulnerable voters and even the most wealthy. Like, she said, like, we didn't see a lot of, like, commercials. There wasn't a lot of information about, like, the expansion of the mail-in voting. People were still really confused, even in Chestnut Hill, when they were coming to the voting booth on Election Day. So that was definitely a missed opportunity.
I agree with that assessment. I do. I saw that as well. I really do feel like, and before we go on to our caller, just, taking a little bit of host prerogative here, and, just to deliberately chastise the Democratic Party machine in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania. And that's the reason why they lost down ballot. Because, there was a real big opportunity there. The Pennsylvania State House was one of those chambers, those top 10 legislative chambers throughout the country that was eyed for being flipped from going from Republican to Democrat. They completely missed that opportunity. And so, they just assumed that everyone was tuned in and plugged in to the election, and by being, just because you're tuned in or aware of or plugged into an election, or you're talking about it, particularly with all the conversation about the current president, does not mean that you're motivated. Doesn't mean that you're motivated to go to the polls, because you could know about it, you could be registered, and we've seen that time and time again. You could be registered, right. You could know everything you want to know. Maybe watching CNN, MSNBC all day, but the key question, the mystery, is whether or not you're going to turn out. And Philadelphia Democrats especially, I think, did a very poor job. Also, this is just me putting a little opinion and a little bit of sauce on this, did a very poor job. They're very lazy. They just assumed, oh, everybody knows about this election, so everyone's going to turn out. They also just missed opportunities for people to understand that there were other elections taking place. And so other people lost. They didn't flip the state house. People who were expected to win, like Nina Ahmad, she didn't win.
Yep.
Right? And, even though she was highly visible and out there, didn't win. So you're just being very late. And I don't know what that is. I don't know what causes that. I guess they like things being like that, because then they fear that, oh, hey, if we motivate and mobilize people, and then suddenly average, even low-income folks in Philadelphia, the more they understand about the political process in Philly, then they'll rise up and unseat us. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know, but it has to stop. Let me go to Woody out of Winfield, who's calling in for a reality check right now.
Yeah, how you doing, Charles?
Hey, what's up?
Always a good program, man. Educating people, which they need real bad, and particularly in a city called Philadelphia, where 25% are illiterate, adults as well as children. I have to ask Mr. Jenner again, because I think we talked the last time, Mr. Jenner, as it related to the educational aspect of voting, and how many people are illiterate that are not able to go in and do the voting the way that they used to, because they changed it, the straight ticket thing. So that had a lot to do with that. Did you ever check into that and find out why they did it?
I think you did, Sojourner, right? We talked about this.
Yes. Is he referring to the literacy problem or the voting?
Well, it's the voting. If you can't read, it's difficult to vote. That's why I'm tying the two together.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. That's a story that we covered about a month ago through VoteBeat. I don't know if you were able to read the article or listen to it on the radio.
No, I didn't see it.
Yes.
Right. There's an article that's at onWURDradio.com that discusses this, WURDradio.com. It's some reporting that she did on it, Woody. So let me, in fact, Woody, I'm going to let you go, because I want to take this other call, and then we can refresh on that for sure. But let me have an opportunity here to take Bernard out of Southwest. Thanks for that question, Woody. It was addressed. Go to wordradio.com first to check out that article by Sojourner, and then we'll refresh on it soon. Bernard out of Southwest, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
All right, good.
I just wanted to call in. I live in the 27th ward, and over the last, I'd say, 6-7 years, there's been very low activity in this ward by the ward leaders, the ward leader. This is a ward that has the University of Penn and College of Pharmacy and Science. It's got those academic institutions in the ward, but there's a fairly stable African-American community in the 27th. It's getting older, but it's fairly stable. And I think there's been a history of, I don't know the numbers, but when I first moved here, there was a lot of interest in voting. I think there's an intentional effort to keep the voter rolls down. You don't see any activity. When Councilwoman Blackwell, in her last couple of years, there's no activity. She wasn't the ward leader over in the 27th, but there wasn't any activity to get people registered to vote.
Got it.
Down in Clark Park, just before the election, there were fights. I don't know if they were Trump people or not, but there were fights involving committee people and folks from outside the neighborhood. And we called the ward leader and voiced our concern about it and what was going to happen to protect people if they went to the polls. The polls were moved. People didn't even know about it. The only activity that was going on was at the mailbox, where we got the information in the mail, and I'll go. We got the information in the mail about constantly got information from Biden constantly. There wasn't any activity here by this WURD leader during the Obama campaign. All that came from people outside of the city and through the mail. So this WURD structure is broke, and that's
an interesting observation there, Bernard. It's hard to disagree with that observation too. I'm going to have Sojourner respond to that. Sojourner?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that's something we heard, especially with the primaries. When I was talking to people in the 27th, they were saying how the primaries were a mess. People were not informed. What I was hearing was like they weren't informed that the voting location they were supposed to go to had either been like moved or was no longer available. And so, of course, that affected how people were able to vote because some folks weren't able to make time, to go to the other location. They had places to go. They have jobs. They have other responsibilities. So some people didn't even end up voting in the primary, which is a huge problem. And I know that the WURD leader there, the Democratic WURD leader that I spoke to, I know she was aware of the issue, but it wasn't clear to me that it was resolved for people in time.
Right.
Until the general, of course.
So the general, of course. So a lot there to talk about, especially for our next session next week, where we'll be talking with Sojourner Ahebe. She is the Vote Beat reporter assigned to WURD. VoteBeat.org for more information. Ask Sojourner Ahebe. WURDradio.com. Woody, go to WURDradio.com first. Maybe we can follow up on that next week. But WURDradio.com. There is an article there. There is that goes into that deeply. Some exclusive reporting from Sojourner about that literacy issue during the election cycle. So, and we did, I remember we were talking about that about a couple of weeks ago, but we'll definitely refresh on it next week, especially after you read that piece, Woody. Sojourner, thanks for your time as always. Thanks for the reporting.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks so much. All right, take care. Okay, let's take a break. We're going to open up phone lines at 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900, 215-634-8065, toll free. It is 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
This message is from the Philadelphia Department of Public Health. COVID-19 is still a threat in our communities, but we can all do something simple to help stop the spread. It's critically important to wear a mask or face covering whenever you're in public or around others. Yes, even while social distancing. Wearing a mask shows you care for yourself and your community and is essential to slowing the spread of COVID-19. So love yourself, love your neighbors, wear a mask.
Have you thought about your Christmas Day or New Year's Day dinner? Contact Eatable Delights Catering for one of their scrumptious packages. Call for the fire-roasted chestnut, the Natalie Cole, or the Arizona Special. They can cater for you for as little as 4 people. 215-236-3900 or stop in at 1540 Wadsworth Avenue. Order by December 21st for pickup and order for delivery by December 24th and December 25th. That's 215-236-3900.
Need a new mattress? Stop by to see Julian, the Mattress Man, located at 7421 Stenton Avenue. You deal directly with the owner, Julian, to ensure the best prices on name brand mattresses like Sealy, Posturepedic. Call 215-424-5550. That's 215-424-5550.
I'm Councilmember Derek Green. As the holidays approach, we've all heard the news. A vaccine for COVID is coming. However, now is not the time to let our guard down. As COVID continues to spread, keep wearing your mask, practice social distancing, and avoid large get-togethers. It will take time before we all get vaccinated. Until then, keep yourself, your family, and community safe. We will get through this pandemic together. Stay safe and stop the spread.
Monday through Thursday, keep it locked to WURD Radio. At 6 a.m., start your day with the Power Hour, hosted by Bishop Dwayne Royster and Reverend Mark Kelly Tyler. At 7, it's Wake Up with Word with Solomon Jones. At 10 a.m., it's Reality Check with Charles Ellison. Then at 1 p.m., it's The Source, hosted by Andrea Lawful Sanders on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, and the Black Women's Leadership Council on Wednesdays. At 4 p.m., it's Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Then at 7, it's Save Space with Sincerely Sarita. At 9 p.m., round up your day with Keeping It Real with the Reverend Al Sharpton. Keep your dial locked to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Streaming live on WURDradio.com and the WURD Radio app. Or watch live on WURD TV via Facebook and YouTube. WURD Radio. Independent Black Media. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check. Phone lines are open. 215-634-8065. Toll free, toll free, it's 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065. Toll free, it is 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. You know, just going back to that earlier conversation real quick before I go to the phone lines, the conversation, the segment we were just having with Sojourner Ahabi about, and the observation that was very hard to disagree with from Bernard out of Southwest about voter mobilization, voter organization, infrastructure in Philadelphia. And, you know, what we've already established, it was just missed opportunities. First, it was just sort of, it was just pure laziness, I think, on the part of the city Democratic Party and the state Democratic Party. I'll say it was just laziness because, I mean, you had opportunities to win more down ballot and you completely squandered it. And so, you know, there was not a whole lot of, well, let's talk about Philly specifically. There wasn't a whole lot of citywide awareness about major state level elections, state legislative elections that were going on at that same time, and that there was an opportunity to go ahead and flip, because everyone in Philadelphia, particularly in City Hall, always complain about lack of support from Harrisburg. Okay, well, if you're getting lack of support from Harrisburg, well, then figure out a way to change the calculus in Harrisburg. Figure out a way, because, you know, you always complain about, oh, Republicans this and Republicans that, and they won't let us do this. They get in the way. They set up these barriers. Okay, well, then gear up and team up with the state legislative delegation in the area and flip the House, flip the Assembly, flip the state House, and flip the state Senate. So then when people are frustrated, when your constituents are frustrated about things like unused dollars, you know, because then, you know, I'm noticing there's a narrative. We're going to keep kind of gradually asking about this till we get to to some sort of climax whereby something's going to be done better the next time the state gets federal money. But, you know, you notice there's this kind of theme creeping up where it's like, well, you know, Republicans, they got in the way from us being able to access or know about those that $175 million in federal funding for rental assistance and mortgage relief. So everybody's always talking about and blaming on Republicans. And to a large degree, they're right. They're correct. Republicans do get in the way. I mean, already there's already news, there are reports about Republicans in places like Pennsylvania and Georgia, because mail-in balloting has been working so well. They didn't expect that. Now they're figuring out ways to suppress that. They're going to become the Republicans and state legislatures in those two states are going to come up with all sorts of clever strategies and tactics and methods to limit access to that. You know, I don't know how anyone can be a member of the Republic. That's all they do is they cheat. And so, so that's true to a degree, but there are just so many other opportunities, so many other things that Democrats and more specifically Black Democrats could be doing, and they just squander it. They just squander it. It's just late. They thought, oh well, you know, there's a big presidential election, and that's what we're going to focus on. That's what we're going to put our time and our effort and money into. So the other thing too is that election organizing, voter mobilization, civic literacy in the city, it's got to become a lot more sophisticated. There's so many aspects of how voters how elections are activated and mobilized in this city. There's so many aspects of it that's just way too antiquated. I mean, we're still relying on 20th century methods, and we're in the 21st century. So there's going to have to be some sort of generational closure in the way that that the folks who are, in those positions, committee people, ward leaders, elected officials, city, state, federal, are going to really have to figure out a way to make this a lot more of a sophisticated operation, because it's not. It's not. There's so many aspects of, so many elements of it where it's very old school. And I think that there are still things, from that time and from that age, I think that are still useful, certain ideas and modes of thinking and philosophies that are always. So I think but there has to be some generational closure, and it's like, and just an understanding that, hey, we need to adapt new ways, while at the same time also figuring out a way to resolve a lot of intergenerational conflict, particularly politically within the Black community. Just this constant tension and conflict. The older generation, they don't want to pass the baton to, they keep saying they do, but they don't. They don't want to pass the baton to the younger folks, and they have to. They need to pass the baton to that new rising generation, that new energy of young folks. And then the young folks want to get disrespectful and don't want to learn lessons from the past, and some of the wisdom that can be transferred down from the older generation. So intergenerational conflict is just out of control, and so that has to be resolved as well. And that partly explains why. Okay, fine, Joe Biden won, but you should have been winning down ballot. Should have flipped the House, the state House in Harrisburg. Should have got that done. And really, honestly, if you were ambitious in a Stacey Abrams kind of way, you could have flipped the state Senate too. But no one was really focused on that. I was, frankly, I'm stunned. I mean, I didn't hear a whole lot of, we had a lot of political ads on WURD. I certainly wasn't hearing a whole lot of political ads reminding people, hey, listen, y'all, there are also these state legislative elections you have to pay attention to. Make sure you're voting down ballot. Make sure you're showing us some love and some support down ballot. Let me go to Madeline out of Overbrook, who's calling in for a reality check. Ms. Madeline?
Thanks for taking my call. Interesting morning. It's time. I don't know how folks had missed it. It's gone on since the election of 2002 when Gore and what's his name ran for president, and you had Democrats. We had an office up on Allegheny Avenue, Pearl Hill, and with Willie. He's a ward leader out here in West Philly. Anyway, the people on the other side of Frankfurt did not want to work with us because we were on Allegheny Avenue. They wasn't coming up there. There was a lot of stuff continuing about what people weren't going to do. Not only the Caucasians, the Puerto Ricans too. And so the way I look at this, what we need is more young people, absolutely, with training. Now, this is what we used to do, because all the people that came in that made a difference in Philadelphia for us to start to grow were independents. That means that was Hardy Williams, that was David Richardson, that was John White Jr. We were not party people. We voted Democrat. Once the Democrats got in, because I remember when the Republicans just ran this town, it was not even street lights. There was not even street lights. It was amazing. When they got in, the first thing they did was put up lights all around the city to shine some light on what's going on, and then trying to move forward. But as we move forward, there's a group of people who, they don't want that much. They don't want that many black people in charge of things. They don't want that many things going on. And as we got up to the mayor thing and got Wilson Good in, I'm thinking that this is a part where we grow into getting something done in the burbs as well. And we got a little people moving out, people moving in. But it's something about taking the classes, having the classes. So we had, from 1984, we had the Political Congress for Black Women. and we tried to have classes. People don't want to come to classes. You can talk about it in the meeting, blah, 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 but when you want a real class so you can get the details of what we do, what we need to do to make the difference, you get 4 or 5 people to sign up. Mm-hmm. So it's some things that if we could get it in our head that if we really want to do, if we really want to be, I'm not going to say even in charge, but to know the value of what we're doing. Yeah. Do we know the value of this vote and what it means to us? Do they know that God has made Georgia right now the promised land for the whole United States of America? That those people down there have the vote. If they put it in, if they go to that poll and they pull that Democratic lever for those 2 people, we are going to be able to get some things done for the people. Not because somebody's going to give you $100 or even $10 or whatever it is they're paying people for them to do whatever it is they're going to do. Like Warner's wife the other day. Did you see her talking about a car running over her toes? And I wonder what somebody paid that woman. And I talked to my grandson-in-law in California last night, and he said, Granny, that's the same thing I was thinking when I saw her. I mean, what is this? Why don't we understand our need to each other? You know what? I swear, my brother, I take it back to slavery when they put us on those ships and they didn't put people we could talk to on our ship, and then we were always taught to do only what white folks said because they tell the truth and black people are animals.
We had to do things. We definitely, Ms. Mal, we had to do things much differently. No, thanks for those comments. I'm going to go to a break real quick. Phone lines are open. Marcus out of D.C. Hold on just one moment. We're going to go to a break. Also, don't forget about the Buy Black Virtual Holiday Marketplace, the Buy Black Virtual Holiday Marketplace. That is ongoing. Go to WURDradio.com, WURDradio.com/marketplace for more there. You can learn about all the various and access all the various black businesses that are there to provide you with all of your holiday needs. So you can continue to support black businesses as well. So we want to be purposeful about that, because today, the 5th day of Kwanzaa, is all about purpose. It's Nia. So being purposeful about that during this holiday season, about buying black, you can do that with the WURD Virtual Holiday Marketplace, WURDradio.com/marketplace or WURDworks.com/marketplace. Let's take a quick break. Phone lines are open at 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Marcus, stand by, and we'll be right back.
Parents, Teachers, Guardians. 100 Black Men of Philadelphia introduces your 6th through 12th grade students to the world of finance. Come to the Young CEO Financial Empowerment Open House on January 9th, 2021. Sponsored by Wells Fargo. Discover 3 free programs where students may win monetary gifts, prizes, and scholarships. Register today at 2021youngceo.eventbrite.com or call 267-258-2900.
This WURD Kwanzaa vignette is brought to you by the Curtis Institute of Music. Habari Gani from WURD Radio. The 7 days of Kwanzaa are dedicated to the Nguzo Saba, or the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. Today is the 5th day of Kwanzaa, Nia, or purpose. Today is a great day to map out how you will use the new year to advance your mind, body, spirit, family, and community. Look at the people in your life who bring positivity, optimism, and a sense of purpose, and create opportunities to express your appreciation for them this year. Also, think about how you can better serve others, even from a distance, as you have a very important role in the lives of those around you. Finally, spend some time with the young people in your life, and come up with a creative way for them to outline the things they'd like to accomplish this year. For more information about Kwanzaa, visit WURDradio.com. This WURD Kwanzaa vignette was brought to you by the Curtis Institute of Music. The Curtis Institute of Music educates and trains exceptional young musicians. And to ensure that admissions are based solely on artistic promise, Curtis makes an investment in each admitted student so that no tuition is charged for their studies. Meet Curtis today at curtis.edu.
Black lives have always mattered at WURD Radio, one of the only Black-owned talk radio stations left in the country. For the new onWURD podcast, join me, Sarah Lomax Reese, as I host a special 4-part series, 2020 in Black. From the pandemic to the global protests against systemic racism to the 2020 election, onWURD celebrates the full humanity and complexity of Black people in this pivotal year. Listen today using your favorite podcast service or visit wordradio.com/2020 in Black. You can also ask your favorite device to play onWURD 2020 in Black. Check us out.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
Okay, 215-634-8065. Phone lines are open. 866-361-0900. Once again, 215-634-8065. Toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let me go to Marcus out of Washington, D.C., calling in for a Reality Check this midweek. Marcus, good morning.
Good morning, Brother Charles. I just want to always thank you for your effort and your spot-on analysis and your intelligence and your struggle, brother. And thank you for your sacrifice. Yes, I just want to thank you for your conversation, your insight yesterday on collective action and how there's a gap or a bridge missing between the older generation and the new generation of freedom fighters, and we have to get a spot on analysis on the pathogen that our people are facing, and when it comes to elections and being a sound voter, you have to be educated, and one way you can educate if you're not able to travel or talk to amongst other people is by reading books.
Right.
Books is the best. You of course read the newspaper and read magazines, but I think, starting early age as a child, right out the womb, parents and grandparents and older siblings need to sit down with these young folks and put a book in their hand and specifically put images that look like them, put black and brown and, African and black images in front of them. So when they go out in the world, and I think you brought this point up, having confidence in collective action, getting the information and being one with the information so you can come to a conclusion to solve your problems. Because the biggest corporations and the CEOs, they have groups and associations, organizations that come together, even though it may seem like they're very competitive. Like, you can have a McDonald's, you can have a Wendy's right across the street. They're not fighting. We don't see, violent confrontations between McDonald's and Wendy's or Burger King. So, Charles, because
they have like trade associations or business roundtables where they all come together. They establish common goals. They also establish that they each have common interests. And we need to, going back to that earlier comment that you made, and that was the comment I remember yesterday when you had called as we were wrapping up the Tuesday edition, Marcus, and we really have to get back to that. We have to get back to organizing or thinking along a collective mindset. We have to organize in such a way where we're thinking about, okay, well, what's the improvement, or what sort of goalpost are we establishing where we are achieving better collective conditions. We're measuring our progress based on the individual achievements of some. When we need to think about progress, particularly as it relates to our history, when we look at our history, when we look at the struggles that we're dealing with even now, the struggles we've been dealing with over the past several hundred years, we can't afford to just take it a step at a time or just consider that our progress must be measured by, the individual achievements of some who've managed to escape certain conditions. We have to think about, okay, well, when we have to imagine, what does a better black life look like collectively? What does this look like? How does this look better for all of us, right? Because a few of us could escape. Could be able to get out of a bad condition, out of a bad neighborhood, for example. But it's still, the struggle, the overall general struggle of being black in America is still going to follow you. It's not going to disappear. So you're still kind of caught in the same, or you're still trapped in the same paradigm. So how do we dramatically change or upend that paradigm? And we have to think about collective action. We have to think about a collective mindset. Go ahead, Marcus. Go ahead. What were you saying? You were finishing up.
Yeah, Brother Charles. If I go to a doctor, right, and I tell the doctor my head is hurting and he's looking at my toes, as the patient, I should already manage a question, say, does this doctor know what he's doing? Because my head hurts. Why he's looking at my toes? So we have to prescribe the right medicine to the ailment, to the disease. If they give you the vaccine for the flu and you have and the threat is SARS, they're going to give you the wrong vaccine. So we have to get the right medicine for the problem. And for instance, like you brought up, we brought up the business roundtable. There actually is literally a business roundtable, and the CEO of Walmart is the chair, and their slogan is leadership and action. So I think the youth, we really want to see the elders. We want to see some of the most prominent members of the black community, for instance, like a Robert E. Smith. We want to see Robert E. Smith, even though he got into a little bit of trouble, with somebody that helped him invest in his business. We still want to see individuals, even like Marion Barry when he got in trouble in D.C. We still want to see brothers who make mistakes, even amongst their own community, to still come out there and share their wealth and the resources, so we can bring up our community.
Marion Barry, I have to admit, he had the right idea. He was literally taking some of what we're talking about and framing it into real action, taking over the city government and creating a situation. He literally created the modern black middle class in the Washington, D.C. area single-handedly. And he had his demons, and he was also being targeted at the same time. Of course, when you're being that active and you're being that effective, Marion Barry was very effective. People can joke all that. I'm not from Washington, D.C., but once I got to Washington, D.C., I understood why. Because everyone outside of Washington, D.C., they're like, why would they reelect this crackhead mayor? No, Marion Barry was a genius. Marion Barry was a genius. Like I said, he had his demons. Who doesn't? But he was a genius. He had the right concept, and we could borrow things. We could borrow some elements from that strategy, from what he was deploying once, before he was elected mayor. Once he was elected mayor, then obviously went to jail, then came back out, was reelected mayor and city council person. But there's just some real lessons that could be learned there. I have to let you go, Marcus. Thanks for that. I appreciate that conversation. We'll continue it. I got to go to Arnold out of Huntington Valley, PA, who's calling in for Reality Check. Arnold?
Good morning, Charles. It's very nice to hear your voice, and
good to hear
everyone at the station. Good morning to you, and happy holidays. I talked with you several years ago at African American Historical Museum, and we talked about a program that I have. It's called VEPI, or Voter Education and Participation for Youth. Just for instance, so I don't want to tax your memory, but
I think I remember that. Yeah, I do remember that. And I'm sorry if I don't remember the specifics, but no, go ahead, refresh me. Thank you.
Yes. So we're a literacy program, nonprofit literacy program, nonpartisan, and what we do is we try to go into youth, or we take groups of youth, and we've come up with a program for educating youth and getting them involved and to participate in government, to participate in civic engagement, to make sure that they vote. The main purpose is to get students aware of the importance of the vote. So we do this in a number of ways. We look at the problems that they recognize as problems in the community. And I just heard you say something about reimagining, what a utopian community, so to speak, would be. And I think that's what we lack, because a lot of students don't understand how the community should look.
Right.
So what did they fight for? But what we say is we come up with this, we give them issues, and they pick an issue that they think should be corrected, and we involve them in discussion, and we use all the available information from different sources to feed them information of how to attack that problem or how to solve that problem. And not only that, and this is the key point that I think a lot of, because we've been to the School District of Philadelphia, we've been to organizations, we've been to churches, we've been to every group that we could possibly do. We sent letters, we did. But anyway, the point that we are stressing is intergenerational, where we have the students go to their parents, go to their neighbors, and we set up an interview. We teach them how to interview or ask questions about what their parents' position is on that issue. They bring that information back to the class, and that way we have a full discussion about various issues. But not only that, we've involved and we introduced a discussion that some parents and some families never have together. They may have, and you mentioned something about intergenerational. Well, there it is. If the student or if the child could bring it into the house, who may have more literacy skills, and sometimes that's the case. They can explain to them. Well, some of the questions are like, do you know where to vote? Would you go out to vote if it's raining? Do you know who you're going to vote for?
Right.
What is it about them that will make you vote for them? So that kind of stirs up.
Or what is it about them that will make conditions in your household, in your neighborhood better?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
But
So
but by that point, but based on whatever it sounds like you're utilizing a lot of scientific method. Remember that from school? Like that's what I mean. A lot of what even I apply here, and the way I approach this program, or the way I've approached politics, the scientific method is what we learned when we were kids, in grade school and like middle school, and it's very useful. It's a very useful kind of step-by-step process. Arnold, can you send me an email? Just cellison@wordradio.com. I do want to refresh on that. I'm starting. I do remember. I don't remember the face, but I remember parts of the conversation from a while back at the African American Museum in Philly. So send me an email, cellison@wordradio.com, so we can reconnect. I appreciate that. I got to let you go so I can take another call real quick before we go to break. Sister Murray out of Northern Liberties is calling in for a reality check. Sister Murray?
Yes. Good morning, Charles. How are you?
Hey, good morning.
I would like to say, my husband and I would like to say to everyone at WURD, all the WURD family and all your listeners, Happy New Year's, and have a wonderful and safe New Year's. Remember to wear your mask, wash your hands, and keep social distance. Also would like to say, even we're coming to closing, going into 2021, and we're so looking forward to it. The bill still has to get paid at WURD. If you know someone who needs a membership, please buy them one. Keep the word going. Keep talking about WURD. You guys navigated us through this whole entire year, which was awesome because you have been a breath of fresh air. You guys have so much to give, and God's going to continue to bless you and your families and everyone at that radio station. But, Charles, I'm going to say one more thing before I go. We have to continue to fight for our schools. We have to put them back into the schools. We need phys ed. We are tired of looking at unhealthy children. You know why they're fat and unhealthy? Because they sit down and they eat. They're depressed. They don't have nowhere to run and play. We want to see joy and laughter in our schools. And we want to see shop, home ec. We want to see all these things back in school, and we want to see joy through our kids' eyes, not depression. Charles, you guys have a wonderful, happy, and safe New Year. And hopefully, God willing, we will see you on the other side.
Hey, thank you for that, Sister Murray. Happy New Year to you. Appreciate you. She's absolutely right. You have to keep young people engaged. You got to keep their minds engaged. You have to keep their bodies engaged and in motion. They have to be in constant motion. That explains a lot. That begins to explain. When you look at the mental and physiological state of our young people today, it all makes sense. It all makes sense. We understand why things are happening the way that they're happening, or why certain clusters of young people are behaving the way that they do. And the school system should be a lot more creative, as it used to be, in making sure it can't be just, leaving, once we go back to open schools, let's do things differently. Let's do things dramatically different than how we used to. Do not have those kids, those young people just sitting up in a classroom or inside brick walls all day. Figure out a new, fresher, more innovative and creative way of educating our young people and our young minds. The Philadelphia public school system in particular, and this is the most public school system, are just absolutely failing at that. They're just absolutely failing at that. And we need to have a conversation about it, about how do we better engage young people? How do we also stop seeing them as bodies in a room, or statistics, or numbers to keep enrollment up, and start looking at our young people or start thinking about how do we transform our young people into scholars? The whole purpose of going to school is to become a scholar. So, going from the student paradigm to the scholar paradigm, we really need to do that. Okay, let's take a break. When we come back on the other side, we're going into an EcoWord segment. Megan Schneider is a spokesperson for Climate Power, and so we're going to talk about climate as a top issue in 2021 for the new incoming administration, what they're going to be doing about it, here on Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Enterprise Exterminators, located 4943 Wayne Avenue, specializing in lantern flies, termites, bed bugs, fleas, mice, and roaches. Do-it-yourself kits are available. Call now, 215-849-7070.
This WURD Kwanzaa vignette is brought to you by Pico, Keystone Plus, and JD's Auto Body and Painting. Habari Gani from WURD Radio. The 7 days of Kwanzaa are dedicated to the Nguzo Saba, or the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. Today is the 5th day of Kwanzaa, Nia, or purpose. Today is a great day to map out how you will use the new year to advance your mind, body, spirit, family, and community. Look at the people in your life who bring positivity, optimism, and a sense of purpose, and create opportunities to express your appreciation for them this year. Also, think about how you can better serve others, even from a distance, as you have a very important role in the lives of those around you. Finally, spend some time with the young people in your life, and come up with a creative way for them to outline the things they'd like to accomplish this year. For more information about Kwanzaa, visit WURDradio.com. This WURD Kwanzaa vignette was brought to you by Pico, powering communities, Keystone Plus, and JD's Auto Body and Painting for all your auto body and detailing needs during this holiday season. Livelihood, the new initiative from WURD Radio, connecting Philadelphians to jobs, entrepreneurship opportunities, small business resources, and financial literacy. Visit WURDworks.com right now and take the next step in your professional journey. Livelihood is supported by the Nightland Fest's Local News Transformation Fund, Borealis Philanthropies Racial Equity and Journalism Fund, and the Solutions Journalism Network. It's the 5th day of Kwanzaa, Habari Gani. Today's principle is Nia, or purpose. So light up the center green candle and stay tuned. This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Streaming live on WURDradio.com, the WURD Radio app, or watch live on WURD TV via Facebook and YouTube. WURD Radio, independent black media. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
Okay, welcome back to Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM in Philly proper. Also, beyond Philly proper, beyond the greater Philly area, we are at WURDradio.com. Got a robust live stream there. Many of you listen in throughout the nation, throughout the world at WURDradio.com and by WURD TV, by the way, forward.com. Well, excuse me, Facebook.com/forward, YouTube.com /onWURD if you'd like to learn more there. Megan Schneider is a spokesperson for Climate Power 2020. Go to climatepower2020.org, a grassroots voter mobilization issue advocacy organization that was activated during the 2020 election cycle to highlight environmental issues, to highlight environmental justice, and especially climate crisis, which we are still, that has not gone away. It's not going away anytime soon. We have to fix it. The planet is literally, the life of the planet is literally at stake with respect to climate crisis, and we talk about that quite a bit here on this program and through our EcoWord project. Megan joining us this morning via Skype. Megan, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
All right, good. Good morning to you. Really appreciate this. So, how much of a top issue was climate crisis, or people call it climate change? It's not climate change anymore. It's in a crisis state, I feel like. But how much of a top issue was that in 2020 for voters, you think?
You're right. It's definitely to the point where it's a crisis. And I think that, one of the encouraging signs is that voters are seeing what's at stake. And it was a top issue for a lot of people. It was actually among the top 3 issues that drove them to the polls. I think, this year, the crisis really bubbled up in a way that we haven't seen before. We had record wildfires in the West. We had a record hurricane season that exhausted the alphabet and went well into the Greek alphabet. We had extreme heat. We had flooding, droughts, all of it. And I think that folks are really ready for change.
Let me ask you about that. I definitely, in the exit polling, I noticed, or at least the more mainstream exit polling that we saw in the aftermath of that 2020 election, I don't know, it didn't seem like environment came up as a top issue, where it was like the pollsters weren't really asking about that. So how were we able to determine that climate was like a top 3, top 5 issue for voters? I did find that interesting. I feel like exit pollsters, or the folks who facilitate those exit polls, need to start asking, or need to start injecting environment into those exit poll questions, and it didn't seem like they did that. So how else were we determining that that this was indeed a top issue for voters in 2020?
Definitely. Well, some exit polls that did include environment found that it was a top issue. For example, one from Fox showed that 72% of voters were really worried about climate crisis. And almost as many favored government spending to address the crisis. But I think to your point, obviously the pandemic overshadowed a lot of the election this year, and that was a focus for a lot of people. And it's important that we look at that within the context of the environmental crisis we're living in. We don't have to choose between addressing the economic downfall from the pandemic or addressing climate change. Addressing climate change is good for the economy. And so, I think one of the problems with exit polling, we won't get too far into it, but
exactly. Go ahead.
Issues. The climate crisis touches all facets. So when people say the economy is their top issue, it might be for environmental reasons, or, same thing with health and other kind of traditional political issues.
No, I think you're right. I think this it really is important. What you're saying, and your colleagues at Climate Power, now that this election has finished, but we still have that January 5th runoff. I know people are biting their nails and waiting with bated breath to see what the outcome will be, to see exactly who will control the Senate. Really, who will be running the federal government? Will it be Mitch McConnell or Joe Biden running the federal government by the time we're all done on January 5th? But in your minds, what is the ideal climate response or climate crisis response from this new administration? What should that look like?
Yeah, so I think the biggest piece of it is, obviously getting out of this economic slump that we're in right now because of the pandemic. And Biden outlined a really clear plan to do that by investing in clean energy and creating millions of good-paying clean energy jobs. I think that that's going to really transform the way that we think about climate and climate action. So that will get the ball rolling. But beyond that, you know, strengthening regulations for pollution so that communities can have clean air and clean water. You know, overturning decades of legacy pollution and environmental injustice is another priority. And kind of, you know, put simply, just putting science back into the government. I think it really can't be stated enough how important it is that Biden will bring back facts and science to policy making.
No, it's going to be real important. Like we just saw, what was it, yesterday or the other day, where there were recommendations from a scientific advisory group to the Department of Agriculture and also Health and Human Services about reducing sugar intake, right? Sugar and other, you know, unhealthy food intake. And both those departments under this current administration rejected the recommendations from the scientific advisory committee, right? So of course you want like lower sugar intake, right? Because they're saying there's been, you know, we're seeing higher rates of diabetes, et cetera. But you know, that's just an example of, and there's many countless examples, obviously, especially with relation to the environment. But that's just one that kind of comes to mind that happened just recently, just now. Do you think the president-elect, along with his incoming Vice President Harris, you think they're taking kind of at least they're setting the right tone? You're feeling like the tone is being set in a really kind of urgent and aggressive way. You seem to be, at least Climate Power seems to be pleased with some of these picks for agencies, cabinet picks for some of these agencies that are related to environmental and climate issues, correct?
Definitely. I think, you know, they have really risen to the occasion. You know, like you said earlier, we're living in the middle of the climate crisis. And I think that both Biden and Harris have really, you know, understood the urgency and are, you know, ready to act. They made climate a huge piece of the campaign, even in the final days of the campaign, which a couple of years ago would have been seen as a pretty shocking political strategy. So I think, you know, they're ready to act. And like you said, they're appointing climate and environmental leaders across the board in the cabinet as well as other top positions. And I think that really indicates that Biden is taking an all-of-government approach to addressing the climate crisis, which is something that, frankly, we haven't seen before. Oftentimes, it's been siloed to certain agencies, but, you know, Biden understands how wide-reaching the effects of the climate crisis are. He knows that, you know, we can't have one government agency address this crisis on its own. And so it's really encouraging to see that they've prioritized people who will put science first and, you know, do what's best for climate at every level.
Megan, how do you think we convince the public that addressing this issue adequately requires collective national action versus, you know, I think that that's one of the, you know, the kind of, you know, perplexities, right, of climate response. Just kind of persuading the larger, the broader American public that this requires collective action and very urgent governmental response versus individual changes in habits. Right, you know, because I think that we need to kind of transition away from, oh, well, you know what, I recycle, you know, I'm getting ready to buy an electric car. I'm going to buy a Tesla tomorrow. I just put solar panels on my house. Okay, well, that's you. But in the meantime, like the rest of the planet, you know, we have like whole states burning, and so we need some collective action. And that's great that you're doing that, but I do feel that that's a problem, that we need kind of the American psyche to understand, to be on the same page, to understand, hey, listen, this is an existential threat here. Like, if we don't get this together, we won't have water to drink and air to breathe. I mean, it's as simple as that. So how do we transition the American psyche to that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and something that, you know, the environmental movement has really had to ponder, especially, as the crisis really gets more severe. I think the good news is that the public already supports climate action. Biden ran on climate and won on climate by more than 5 million votes. So that's a really promising sign. But beyond that, I think that, the American public is really ready for Washington to work together and, work towards bipartisan solutions that will, give us a planet, like you're saying. I think that, holding polluters accountable is really important. And I think, this year we've really started to talk a little bit about the corruption and the ways that the Trump administration has let polluters poison our environment with impunity. And I think, going into the Biden administration, it's important to, hold polluters accountable, but also convey to the public that those are the folks that are really driving this climate crisis.
Right.
It's great to recycle. It's great to, reduce how much plastic you use. But at the end of the day, the fossil fuel companies are the ones really driving this crisis. And so we need to hold them accountable.
They are. I do agree with you on that. However, one thing that does concern me about Biden's plan, or the Biden administration's plan to address climate crisis, is, still relying on natural gas, which I think is a misnomer. I'm not sure how gas is natural, but relying on natural gas to be this bridge energy method that gets us to like full clean energy, renewable energy, still kind of keeping, instead of saying, hey, let's just shut down natural gas and like as quickly as possible as we can transition to clean energy. It's still this reliance on natural gas as this bridge energy method. I'm concerned about that. It's still kind of like still trying to rely on the fossil fuel industry to help get us out of a problem that not only they created, but they continue to exacerbate. How do we resolve that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, he has said that he's going to move away from natural gas and stop permitting on federal lands, which is a great first step. And I think, really driving these investments in clean energy is the key to get us away from fossil fuels. And I think that once folks start understanding that and getting past the misinformation that Trump and his allies have really been lobbying against this plan, I think folks will really get behind it and be supportive of moving quickly to reduce emissions and towards clean energy.
Now, and kind of expounding on that conversation a little bit more, I was talking to, his name escapes me because we were just talking to him last week, but it was at the Progressive Policy Institute, and he made a really good point here. He said, well, okay, but we can find sort of some common ground between the environmental advocacy space, the people who are rightfully so trying to mitigate and reduce climate impact, and also the fossil fuel industry, in terms of using the fossil fuel industry, using its technical expertise to help us transition into fully clean energy. That's where we could probably find an opportunity for partnership there, because those fossil fuel companies still need to make money. They still have employees, they still have workforces that still need to make a living, but they have skill sets, they have expertise, they have technical experience that can actually help build up the clean energy infrastructure that we need to make us totally reliant on clean energy in the 21st century. What about that?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. I think we're starting to see that the big oil companies are realizing that they're not so popular, and so they're trying to shift towards, greenwashing themselves. I'm not so familiar with how that would work, leveraging their technical experience. I think, where possible, it's good to work together, but I would be wary of whether that's greenwashing or, a good faith effort to actually reduce emissions.
Right. I'd be worried there too. It gets to my next question, where about the timeline to tackle this, to not just reduce the impact. We have to figure out a way to stop it in its tracks. I mean, the changes that have happened to the planet are already, some changes are already permanent.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we stop this in its tracks so we don't get any more destructive permanent changes? And so how fast is the timeline here? Sometimes I feel like we're moving very slowly for a crisis that's moving so quickly and rapidly, and it's about the fate of the planet. Do you feel that? I mean, are folks in the environmental advocacy space also worried about that? That maybe the Biden administration, definitely good intentions here. Oh, great plans, some great cabinet picks, but need you guys to move a little bit more quickly on this.
No, I definitely hear your frustration. And I think, especially in a year like we've seen with just catastrophic consequences across the board from the climate crisis, the pace of change can be frustrating. But I think it's also important to, look to the signs of hope that are there. Biden has really emphasized that we cannot wait. He's ready to go on day one. And I think the cabinet picks are a really encouraging sign because, now that we've run out the clock on the climate crisis and we're in this dire situation, we need an all hands on deck approach. And that's exactly what he's setting up with the climate picks across the cabinet. So I do feel hopeful. I think that he really appreciates the severity and the urgency of the crisis, and he's ready to listen to scientists.
Yeah. What about the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency? It's been wrecked, pretty much. It's just a shell of the federal agency that it was before the current administration. So how do we fix that? I mean, and then there's the issue of, okay, so there's no guarantee that we're going to get a second term of a Biden administration. He's even said he's probably just going to do one term. He was just in there to just right the ship. But there is an expectation that his vice president, that Kamala Harris, will hopefully will get elected in 2024. But you're going to be spending the next couple of years, I would think, probably half the first Biden term trying to fix the EPA because it's such a mess. So how do we get there?
That's a great question. And, there's no simple answer. It's not going to be an overnight fix, unfortunately, because it hasn't been an overnight attack on the EPA. This is, the Trump administration just chipping away piece by piece. But I think, again, it comes back to bringing science back into the government. Trump has really pushed scientists out of the EPA, which weakened the agency. He also chipped away at their enforcement capacity by reducing the number of folks that were on board to enforce regulations that are already on the board. So I think one area where the Biden administration could have some pretty substantial impact, just enforcing the regulations that are already on the board is huge, but then going beyond that and expanding the regulations to, crack down harder.
We had a listener here who makes a really good point. They were watching us on WURD TV on our Facebook live stream. Tate Jenks was saying there's a climate crisis, all right. People getting evicted and freezing their butts off is the climate crisis. He makes a very good point, he or she makes a very good point here, because how do you help the general public, but also certain populations, certain distressed populations, I call them frontline populations, understand that this crisis is also about them? How do you make the conversation about climate crisis more relatable on this level? Because he's right. That is an aspect of climate crisis. Because, we look at poor, low income Black populations in high impact zones like in the Gulf, right? Or on certain parts of the East Coast, especially in the southeastern part of the United States, the South, they get displaced in really dramatic ways. There are people still who got displaced by Hurricane Katrina back in 2005 that haven't been able to return to New Orleans, just permanently displaced. So how do we make those realities connect, or how do we make the conversation that's top level, like the conversation you and I are having about climate crisis, connect to those realities, that distress that people are dealing with in certain types of communities?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it's so important. That's a big piece of the work that we've done at Climate Power, but it's also something that I think Biden did well throughout his campaign, was really uplifting stories of, everyday people who have been impacted by the climate crisis. I think, for so many years, the climate crisis has been this sort of nebulous problem that's coming, but we haven't really done a good job of connecting it to people's everyday lives, you know, the ways they're displaced, like you're talking about, the way, you know, low-income communities living in areas of extreme heat or extreme cold aren't able to pay for their utilities to keep their homes, you know, safe and comfortable. I think that's important. And Biden has, you know, I think uplifted those stories in a good way, but also, you know, talked about ways to mitigate kind of the broad, like natural disaster consequences of the climate crisis, but also, you know, investing in things like infrastructure, you know, making buildings, you know, more energy efficient. That's going to help people in those kind of frontline communities as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think, you know, definitely want to continue to have that conversation. And the people in those communities can be the real, true kind of new, fresh wave of leaders, not just in that conversation, but in the advocacy, the action, and the mobilization behind it. So definitely looking forward to continuing that conversation with you, Megan, and your the rest of you folks over at Climate Power, doing some fairly good work there, just raising awareness around this climate issue. We've been talking to Megan Schneider. She is a spokesperson for Climate Power 2020. She's also worked on a number of Democratic presidential campaigns. Go to climatepower2020.org for more information. I don't know what's happening to Climate Power. Is it going to be Climate Power 2021, or do you just kind of fold shop and wait till the next election cycle? What's happening with that?
We're sticking around.
Okay.
Yeah, the fight's not quite over.
Right, got it. Okay, good. Well, we're keeping a close eye on it, and I'm sure we'll be keeping in touch with you and having you back on. Thanks so much, Megan, for your time. Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Let's take a break. When we come back on the other side, we were supposed to be talking to Context Media Group's Torrin Walker. He's supposed to be joining us next. Torrin out of Atlanta will be joining us next here on Reality Check. We'll keep the phone lines open in case you have questions for Torrin. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
America's biopharmaceutical companies are making progress against COVID-19, now with several promising vaccine candidates in phase 3 clinical trials. With an effort to include people from every walk of life, these trials involve tens of thousands of participants. From development to clinical trials and throughout the manufacturing process, these medicines and vaccines are rigorously tested for safety and effectiveness. Go to pharma.org/coronavirus for updates. Because science is how we get back to normal. Paid for by Pharma.
Did you know you can catch the flu and COVID-19 at the same time, or even back-to-back? Don't risk catching the flu during the COVID-19 pandemic. The flu shot is a safe and effective way of reducing your chances of catching the flu or spreading it to others. And the flu shot helps protect you and your community from the worst effects of the flu. Don't say, I should have got my flu shot. Call your doctor or visit your pharmacist and get your flu shot today.
Tune in to onWURD's 2020 in Black podcast series, available now on your favorite podcast app, or visit wordradio.com/2020 in Black. You can also ask your favorite device to play onWURD 2020 in Black. Check us out.
WURD Radio presents the following wellness tip to support our listeners with mindfulness and motivation as we continue to navigate the pandemic together.
Hi, this is Halana, your resident health and wellness coach, with tips to help you stay well. We breathe every day and have been doing so since before we were born. But wait, let's think about this for a moment. Something as simple as breathing can enhance our health and well-being. When we breathe mindfully, we slow down, take deep breaths, and activate our parasympathetic system to relax our bodies. Mindful breathing goes like this. Number 1, find a comfortable place to sit still for a few minutes. Number 2, close your eyes and relax your hands on your thighs. Number 3, take a deep breath in and count to 3. Then exhale your breath and count to 3. Do this 5 times. We sometimes think mindful breathing has to be an intense experience, yet even just a few minutes a day can make a big difference. Go ahead and try it today. Stay well with WURD. Happy living.
Stay well with WURD. Connect with us at wordradio.com. Reality Check with Charles Ellison. Right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
Okay, Torrin Walker, we were trying to get him. Normally he joins us by Skype, so he said he just sent us an email saying he's having some technical issues, so he may join us by phone. We are keeping the phone lines open anyway. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. What new political and economic reality are you looking for in 2021? So, you know, I know we always have that campy and sometimes contrived conversation about New Year's resolutions. So let's get a little bit more deeper and cerebral about it, and you know, a little bit smarter about it. Let's talk about, you know, once again, let's go back to that mindset of thinking collectively. And how we are managing this situation, managing our, you know, we are in collective conditions. And it can't be the only time we're thinking about being collective or thinking as a community is when, you know, a viral video is unleashed of a police officer shooting an unarmed black person, you know, or putting his neck, putting his knee on a black man's neck, right? You know, we have to be more consistent about that. We have to be doing that 365 days a year, and we need to be doing that collectively together. It can't just be in those big major headline moments, and then we react in a fit of outrage to it. You know, we need to also be a lot more, instead of being reactionary, we need to be proactive. So we need to start thinking much more deliberately about, you know, coming up with creative plans and creative solutions. So I like for example, what the earlier caller, the one who was reminding me about that conversation we were having earlier several years ago at the African American Museum in Philly, Ronald out of Huntington Valley. And I hope, Arnold, if you're still listening, just please email me, cellison@wordradio.com. But, you know, I like what he's doing with his program with young people in terms of encouraging them, you know, in terms of building up their civic literacy and also encouraging them to become much more engaged in a civic fashion, not just through voting, but also through, you know, teaching them about public affairs and political process or policy making. You know, he's saying, you know, we ask them, we talk to them, we want to know from them, well, what are the issues that concern them the most first? What are those issues that they think are the biggest problems that are affecting their community from their vantage point, from their perspective? And then we start laying out, we start workshops where we start asking them, okay, well, let's work out a solution. What are the steps towards resolving that crisis or that issue or challenge? These are the kinds of steps we need to take. We do have Torrin Walker, founder, CEO of Context Media Group. Go to contextmediagroup.com for more information, analysis, and some great essays there. Also at Torrin Walker on social media, on Twitter especially, where he's highly engaged. He's joining us here, as he does occasionally, on Reality Check, joining us from Atlanta. And phone lines are open too if you have any questions or want to add a little bit of flesh and texture and context to this conversation. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. Torrin, happy holidays to you. Good to have you on.
Same to you, brother. Happy holidays. Happy Kwanzaa and Nia and Purpose.
That's right. Happy Kwanzaa and Nia as well. Yes, thank you for that. We have to think purposefully, and that's why it's so just so significant. I mean, that we have this 7-day holiday, and that we recognize those 7 principles. I don't know if you were listening to what I was just saying, Torrin, about like what are your expectations heading into 2021? I mean, how do we do things better? Not just culturally, not just in terms of our cultural awareness, you know, because at the end of the day, it all boils down to the culture. But how do we do things better politically, economically, in terms of demanding and acquiring our own agency politically and economically? What do you think we need? What's that New Year's resolution on that level for 2021 for you?
I think we have to get into a collective mindset, and we're going to have to let go of this individualist mindset. If this election season has shown us nothing else, it's shown us the bankruptcy of the idea of individual achievement, being able to uplift everybody in the collective. you can have someone who shares your skin tone and shares your gender and implement policies that are completely detrimental to you all, to your collective. So I think that's what's going to have to happen. We're going to have some hard conversations and some hard policies in place for us as a collective and build collectively again like we used to.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. We were talking about that earlier, too. You know, this collectivism we've got to bring that back. We had that at one point. You know, I do want to get your thoughts because we started kind of touching on that a little bit earlier on in the program. You know, just that there's always that intergenerational tension, particularly within the Black community, the tension between the old school and new school way of doing things. How do we bridge that, right? Because, you know, you'll have like the younger folks. I kind of bristle at the statement sometimes where they say, well, I'm not my grandparents. It's like, don't forget what your grandparents went through. Like, your grandparents was going through got scraped hard, going through, you know, years of struggle to help get us to the point where we are now. And then I bristle when the older folks talk about what's going on with kids these days, you know. So how do we bridge those gaps? Because, you know, where the older generation, particularly in politics, they refuse to, on a larger scale, pass the baton, and the younger folks, a lot of younger folks out there don't appreciate the lessons and the wisdom from the past.
I think there needs to be education on both sides. And when I say education, I think that people who were born into the struggle and people who were young people and came of age in that time who are still here from the 50s and the 60s up into the 70s, I think they need to be more proactive about reaching out to young people and giving people more of a narrative outside of just showing them pictures of civil rights marches and the dogs and everything. Everybody knows that. I don't think really young people have an idea of the everyday struggle that Black people had to deal with during those times. I mean, trying to put food on the table, trying to build households, trying to keep a family secure. I think that has to happen. And I also think that young people have to also be able to not feel intimidated by talking to people who are older and telling them, well, this is what we're going through now. This is what we're dealing with in the present day. Because if you look at it, there's really not that much difference. Some of the same things that our elders were going through now just in different ways. And I think that has to happen. It has to be mutual respect, and it has to be cross-generational conversation. Right now, that's not happening, and it has to come from a place of mutual respect. So I think that's where it has to start.
Yeah, we do have to be a lot more intentional about that. And, you know, I know that everyone, you know, sort of recognizes, you know, just in the general conversation, hey, oh, you know, we've got this gap, these tensions, this intergenerational divide, but no one's really acting towards resolving it or reconciling it. And that's just a really big problem. Torrin, I did want to ask you, because you're down in Atlanta, you're in Georgia, you got your finger on the pulse, with respect to that big runoff that everyone is watching very closely. That's supposed to happen on January 5th, that U.S. Senate runoff. More than 2.3 million voters, I understand, have cast their ballots already in Georgia, and the previous runoff turnout record in Georgia was 2008. I think it was Georgians cast 2.137 million ballots in the entire election. That was in 2008, and that was when Barack Obama was running, of course. So more than 78,000 Georgians who did not vote in the 2020 general election have voted already, which I find interesting. What's driving that in Georgia? Is it Stacey Abrams? Is it Ralph Warnock? You know, because you got this very telegenic, highly capable and skilled Black candidate that's in the mix, and Black Georgians are like, oh, you know, I didn't vote before. I like this cat. I think I want to participate in this. Or is it John Ossoff?
I think it's a combination of all three of those, because Stacey Abrams has done a lot. She's been kind of not so much in the spotlight as much as she was when she was running for governor, but she has done phenomenal work, and her team has done phenomenal work getting the word out about voting to people on the ground and people who may have been disinterested or not really concerned about it before. She's done a really good job of making people aware of the stakes for this election. That's one part of it. The other part of it, there is a very aggressive grassroots organizations that are in Georgia, in Atlanta, and even in rural Georgia that are knocking on doors. They've been to my door 4 times already in the past 2 weeks, letting people know that this election is crucial and they need to get out and vote. And there's also been a very, very aggressive ad campaign. You can't turn on the TV. You can't open your mailbox without seeing mailers for Ossoff and for Warnock. And I do think you're right. They have 2 very young, very dynamic candidates, and I think that's energizing younger people, and it's kind of giving older voters sort of a feeling of when Kennedy was running and when some of the people like Andrew Young and some of the people who had basically assumed that mantle from Martin Luther King after his assassination in Atlanta and in Georgia.
Yeah.
I think that's energizing people. You have two candidates that are very good at getting out their message, and they're photogenic, and and that's appealing to people. And you have two candidates on the opposite side who are so heinous that people feel like they have to, it's a civic duty to get out and vote against these people, Loeffler and Perdue. So I think it's a perfect storm of all these things, and it's also a backlash against Trump. So people see the stakes, and they're doing a very good job of getting that word out. So I think that's what's driving the election result.
How do Black people heading into 2021 organize in such a way that we are collectively? This goes back to that collective, well, partly to that collective mindset conversation, right? Where we're productively accessing and harnessing Black political leadership, because we can both agree here. There's a lot that is missing with Black political leadership today. We just said that about a few moments ago. But now, how do we find some kind of some kind of power from that? How do we reconfigure that in such a way where it's like the Black political leadership, we're fixing it, right, and it's working for us? How's that going to happen in 2021? I mean, Stacey Abrams is a prime example of how that could happen. Right. I mean, she's kind of creating her own political infrastructure here. I mean, while she's on her revenge tour, and I'm with it. and I know Stacey Abrams. I know that even folks before she ran for governor, and I heard this because I've talked to folks off record down there in Georgia. There were folks in the Black political class, the Black political status quo class in Georgia. She was not very popular amongst them, especially when she was House Minority Leader. Some of the words that they used, and I remember talking to some of those folks. Who probably trying to be her friends right now. They were like, well, she can be very abrasive and abrupt, and it's always Stacey's way. But so now she's just like, she ran for governor, she got cheated out of that election, and now she's on her revenge tour. She's like, okay, I'm just going to create and build my own thing. So how do we now expand on that model into something that's just a lot more profound and powerful in 2021 and beyond?
Well, I think you're going to have to take this message. I'm going to use the example that Dave Chappelle used on his last stand-up show. He basically said, "I'm taking my message. I'm not going to go to the infrastructure. I'm taking my message to my bosses, which is you." And he was talking about his audience. And I think that's what's going to have to happen in Black politics. People who represent the people who go to work every day, who are not career politicians, are going to have to build community with those people and build people with the poor and working class, which is the majority of Black people. And they're going to have to create their own candidates, and they're going to have to create their own organizations to challenge some of this complacent status quo Black leadership that we have. That's just the fact. We have a leadership class in America, in Black America, that has gotten complacent, and they're starting to age out of their youthfulness. I mean, it may be harsh to say, but it's the truth. I think it's time for these people to either sit down or acknowledge the fact that, they've created amazing things. They've done a lot of amazing work, but it's time to listen to people from another generation with different ideas, with some ideas that are going to be abrasive to the status quo. And that needs to happen, because you can't get any progress in America as a Black person trying to go along with the status quo. You have to uproot it. You have to challenge it. And it has to be a constant thing. And I think that's what's going to have to happen. The poor and working class Black people are going to have to create their own leadership, create their own organization, and move into places of power and negotiate from a position of strength and come from a position of aggressiveness. That's the only way things move in this country, and that's what's going to have to happen.
Speaking on that and all the other issues we've talked about, not just in this segment, but previous segments, Torin, what do you think was that most underreported yet most significant topic of 2020?
I think the most underreported topic of 2020 was the limits of identity. In this 2020 election, you saw a lot of Black gatekeepers, Black academic gatekeepers, Black cultural gatekeepers, and Black political gatekeepers expend a lot of their social capital backing a system and backing a candidate who, by even his own admission, up until 2020 was not the best candidate. And I saw a lot of people who were trying to suppress a lot of issues that people who were on the ground, people who have been affected by the Democratic nominees and had issues with their records, basically get suppressed and pushed to the side and told that their opinions didn't really matter. and that we need to get behind this candidate because of Trump. Trump is bad. Nobody is denying the fact that Trump was a horrible candidate, a horrible president, and his policies have been heinous. But you don't push back against policies like that by disregarding the real, genuine concerns of the people who are you trying to get the rally to vote against it. I think that's what really was the most underreported story of 2020, just the bankruptcy of identity and using identity by itself as a measurement for validity. I think that's what happened. I think it's going to be a reckoning event 2021.
All right, we've been talking with Torrin Walker, founder, CEO of Context Media Group. You can engage him. You can see some of his thought leadership unfold at Torrin Walker on Twitter.com. You can definitely find him there, contextmediagroup.com, for more of their analysis essays. I'm sure he's got more ready for 2021. We have him here occasionally on Reality Check. It's always good to talk with him. Next time we'll get you on Skype, brother. So Happy New Year to you and yours. Happy Kwanzaa, happy remainder of Kwanzaa, and looking forward to seeing you on the other side.
You as well, brother. Thank you very much. And thank you much for WURD and the work you do in Philly.
All right. Thank you. We appreciate that. We'll see you again. Take care. Be safe down there. All right. Let's take a break. When we come back on the other side, phone lines are open. 215-634-8065. Toll free. It is 866-361-0900. Also, don't forget, today is NIA. NIA is the fifth principle of Kwanzaa. NIA focuses on preserving the black dollar within the black community. NIA encourages us to spend money with purpose and reminds us of the power we hold in our personal spending habits. Right now, you have the power to support and protect Black Talk Media when purchasing an annual 4WURD membership. So at a discounted rate of $80 until January 1st, 2021, you can join the WURD family for access to special events, exclusive digital content, WURD swag, VIP invitations, discounts, and our printed newsletter, WURD Press. So visit wordradio.com/join now for more details. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, phone lines are open, 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Phone lines are wide open as we head into the noon hour. We're going to actually close out this Wednesday edition of Reality Check with open phone lines, y'all. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
I'm Anthony McLaurin. Been denied insurance? Call 888-307-0505. Life insurance, age 0 to 85, no examination needed. Homeowners insurance, any home, any condition, same-day coverage, 888-307-0505. Auto insurance, we can have you covered in 15 minutes. Business insurance, call 24 hours a day, 888-307-0505. I'm Anthony McLaurin. When you need insurance, I can help.
Always Best Care is a great place to work. Flexibility,
leadership, purpose,
great benefits.
There's never a dull moment.
Diversity, inclusion, compasión.
We love our jobs. If you're looking for a great place to work, you can join our compassionate Team Green. You can apply online at teamgreenabc.com or call 267-909-9248.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
Okay, welcome back to Reality Check. Phone lines are open at 215-634-8065. Toll free, it's 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Also, don't forget about the Buy Black, but since we're in purpose, today's Kwanzaa principle is purpose, is NIA. We have our buy. We're doing that. We're doing it with a lot of purpose. We're putting our money where our mouth is by buying black with our virtual holiday marketplace, supporting black businesses that are supporting you not only through the holidays and through this extended holiday season, and it's a very difficult one as well. It's been a very difficult 2020, and normally we all see each other in person for a holiday extravaganza. But also, black businesses who are, making sure that we're keeping those dollars circulated within the community. So go ahead and continue to meet your holiday needs at the WURD Holiday Virtual Marketplace, wordradio.com/marketplace, wordworks.com/marketplace. Okay, so phone lines are wide open. Phone lines are wide open between now and for the remainder of this Wednesday edition of Reality Check. 866-634-8065. Toll free, 866-361-0900. Let's go to Rick out of Germany, out of Deutschland, who's calling in for a reality check. Mr. Rick, how are you doing, sir?
Slow enough to keep up with you.
Okay.
I think America and any president that gets elected is going to drag their feet on the climate crisis. They're not going to stop building warships. They're not going to stop building automobiles, and they're not going to stop dumping that pollution into the earth and the water. They're not going to change until it gets hard for them to physically breathe.
Yeah? You still there, Mr. Rick?
I'm still here.
Yeah. I'm afraid you're probably correct on that. I don't feel like, and I think that's going to be one of the real big issues. I think that is the big issue of 2021 with respect to the fate of the planet and climate crisis. All other issues become irrelevant. Like, how can we have other issues when we can't breathe? Literally can't breathe, and we don't have things like clean water to access. We can't live. And so that's the question of civilization right now. But I'm afraid, like, I don't feel like things are moving fast enough. I don't think that shift to clean energy is happening fast enough. People are right now just talking about silly things like, okay, well, let's just ramp up putting more solar panels on people's houses. Well, what about the rest of the community? What about things like solar grids? Why aren't we moving in that direction? The technology and the expertise is there. We already know how to do it, so let's do it. If this is indeed an existential threat. So I tend to agree with you on that.
I think in closing, your audience would be rewarded to look up Nikola Tesla. He was an incredible inventor, and they have delayed his technology for some time.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Thank you for that. We'll look into it. Yeah. So thank you for those thoughts, Mr. Regan. Those urgent thoughts, and I think people need to be aware and listen. Let me go to Prince out of Schuylkill, who's calling in for a reality check. Mr. Prince, how are you doing, sir?
Hey, Charles. How are you?
How are you doing?
Good. One of the things that's interesting to me is what direction and who's given us any direction come January of next year. Because when you heard the elected president speak yesterday, it seems like he is having a directive, and he's not saying that it's mandated, but he's saying that it's mandated. Mandated to wear a mask in his first 100 days, mandated to get vaccine. So it just seems, I had the appearance yesterday that it was this dogmatic approach from the White House on what it is that we have to do. It wasn't no choice, and maybe the speech was different for you, but it just seemed like it was. And if that is the case, if it's that dogmatic, then I think from the black community, somebody should be saying, well, all of the low income, middle class, high income, when you send your kids back to school in January, it's going to be mandatory that they get vaccinated. I just think that we're left in limbo, and then the directives come.
But Prince, how are we left in limbo? I mean, we do this with the measles, with chickenpox, flu, polio. We have a deadly contagious that's mutating. It's mutated. We had the first mutated case that's known, identified in Colorado now here in the United States, which makes it even more severely contagious. The slower we are on inoculating it, the worse it's going to get. I really have to ask folks who keep. I mean, at some point, first of all, that yes, they are going. I'm talking to folks, policymakers who are bracing for that. They're going to have to mandate it on certain levels, and it may not be. It's not going to be like a blanket edict from President Biden. It's going to be employers. It's going to be airlines have already established that. They're like, you can't get on a plane. Once the vaccine is available, you will not be able to get on a plane and go visit auntie and uncle or your cousins or whomever or your mom or dad. You cannot get on this flight unless you show us record of vaccine. So, you're going to have to drive.
Right. But
and then you're not going to be able to get a job. you know, so think about the mass displays. People, I don't think people are thinking this through. So, I mean, I understand Tuskegee experiment happened, but you know what? That happened like nearly 50 years ago. So we're like, we are presumably in a much better place. Yeah, I mean, we have to keep an eye open for any sinister things happening and nefarious things happening around us, but it's called risk management. There's risk management. We still buy cars. Cars kill 50,000 Americans a year, but we still buy them because we need them to get from point A to point B.
I'm one of the callers that didn't say anything about the Tuskegee experiment. I just don't like everything you said. You got that as a journalist. You picked that up, and that's the narrative of talking points. You have no conclusive evidence.
But what else? But Prince, what else are we? Well, what is your plan then? How are you going to inoculate a mass population, and how are you going to stop a genocidal pandemic? You must have a plan, bro. You must have a plan. Tell me what your plan is. I mean, I hear people on this, but I'm like, okay, well, on one hand, I think people should call folks out, including the president-elect, on, okay, well, what does this entail? But then have your plan ready. Like, what is your plan? What's your alternative plan?
Here's my plan. My plan is not for you to ask me to have a plan. I'm asking you to have some politicians come on here to tell the people, or at least give the people an opportunity to have a Q&A about what's going on. What I'm saying is, but then, you know what, Prince? When I have Q&A, I get folks who like throw snarky emails at me saying, well, you know, you're not getting. I'm not going to bring folks on here who are going to spread disinformation and say people shouldn't get vaccines. I'm sorry, that's not a both sides conversation. That's a dangerous conversation. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. But it's like if I'm going to have that Q&A, which we have been having for quite a while here, then people need to stop, you know, doing the clap back and saying, oh, well, we shouldn't do it. We should, and acting like we're not addressing their concerns. We are trying to address their concerns. I have concerns about it too, like I have about everything else. Every time I go out in my vehicle to go drive somewhere, I worry about getting in a car crash. It's called risk management. So we're doing the best risk management that we can based on what we have now. But go ahead, Prince. Go ahead. Finish up. I'm sorry. And I'm going to end with this right here. That's not where I'm headed. All I'm saying is, there needs to be more dialogue in this way, and it's like you can't take it personal. I'm just asking you to bring the people in so the other people, your audience, can talk to those people, not talk to you. You can't justify or be the narrator for how this thing is happening because it's bigger than you. You're not on the boots on the ground, but the politicians are the boots on the ground. So if you put the two together, then we could. It makes come January, you force all these teachers and force all these children to go to school without a clear understanding. Then I'm asking you as the journalist. I'm not asking you as the host. I'm saying, hey, Charles, you can put some of these politicians so their constituents could understand better what it is they want us to do come January. That's all I'm asking, and I'm going to hang up and listen to you.
Got it. But my thing is, I mean, what else are policymakers supposed to say other than, hey, listen, we're in the middle of a highly contagious and deadly pandemic that's killed a lot of people. It continues to kill a lot of people, including a lot of black people. This is what we're going to have to do, y'all. This is the public health guideline. Full stop. I mean, I don't understand. It's not. I just don't understand why we're still kind of equivocating on this. That's what I don't understand. And I'm saying that as a, you know, I'm not a trained journalist. I mean, political strategist, public affairs field is my thing. But yeah, I'm saying that as a journalist. I'm saying that as a concerned citizen, as a father and a husband. I don't know what else, because I think that once we start kind of backing public leaders and I've been noticing them doing that too, certain public officials and public leaders, people are being certain segments of the community and some folks in that anti-vaccine movement who've been around since before the pandemic are backing public officials into the corner in a really dangerous way and forcing them to equivocate or to speak out of both sides of their mouth on whether or not to get vaccinated. That's dangerous. That's dangerous, especially in a highly contagious environment where hundreds of thousands of folks have died, and probably more people have died that we've undercounted. That's what I have issues with that. That's why I'm kind of snapping back on that one point there. I have a point of contention with that, Prince. It's nothing personal against you, but I mean, what else are they going to say? Because once you start getting into, you know how elected officials are and public and politicians. I mean, it's like, so that's why I've like, when it comes to that conversation, I prefer bringing on the public health officials, because they're the scientists. They know. They're the ones who've also done the research on the vaccine. They're the ones who've got their hands on it, and they know, and they stick with the facts. I don't want to get some public official or politician on here who's too afraid to say, hey, listen, y'all, you don't have to take the vaccine. This full stop. Like, but then they're going to equivocate, and then it's going to give people more fodder to think that they still have some wiggle room not to take the vaccine. And then we're just all we're doing with that in that conversation. You know, the only thing that we're doing is we're prolonging the pandemic. We're prolonging it, and I'm tired of it. I'm tired of people saying they're tired of the pandemic, but then they don't want to do the basic. They don't want to follow the basic public health guidelines. Like you, even a few moments ago, Prince, you were saying, well, mandating masks. What's wrong with mandating masks? That's part of the reason why we're where we are now, because the current fool in the White House doesn't want to mandate mask wearing. So yeah, we should be wearing masks. But people don't, you know, everybody's saying, oh, I'm so tired of this pandemic. But then they don't want to follow basic public health instructions. They don't want to just stick to the basic facts. Everybody wants to, you know, we're in this new kind of different time and space. This wasn't the case like 30 years ago or so, but now everyone has the internet and WebMD and, you know, and their local active conspiracy theorists, and, you know, everyone's an expert now. And it's like, instead of listening to, you know, just in terms and moments of crisis like this, getting the basic guidelines and directions and following them, and helping our young people, more importantly, follow them, you know, so we can finally end this pandemic. Anyway, I've gone a little over time. I'm sorry. Let me take a break. We'll keep the phone lines open. Everyone, hang on. We got Maurice out of Southwest coming up next, and 215-634-8065. Toll free 866-361-0900. Sorry, I don't mean to get so worked up. Well, I do mean to get so worked up, because this pandemic has literally been a live, fully loaded gun to the head of this nation. And I just think, I mean, like, either we want to survive it or not. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. Let me take a break, and we'll come right back with more calls. Maurice, stand by.
Dietz & Watson has been making premium meats and artisan cheeses for over 80 years. And when it comes to stacking sandwiches and party platters, they've got something for everyone in the family, like maple honey turkey breast, American cheese, buffalo chicken, and more. So get to your local deli and taste 4 generations of family recipes. With Dietz & Watson on the table, you'll have everyone coming back for seconds and thirds. Dietz & Watson, it's a family thing since 1939.
At Champion Dentistry, we want to make sure your smile is as healthy as it is beautiful. Whether you're calling for a routine checkup, calling about a newly developed toothache, or interested in learning about cosmetic dentistry options. Our services include routine checkups, cosmetic dentistry, gum care, laser dentistry, and more. Champion Dentistry is in the Overbrook Farm section of the city, easily reachable by public transportation. Call 215-473-4717 to schedule an appointment today, or visit championdentistry.org, the House of Smiles.
Monday through Thursday, keep it locked to WURD Radio. At 6 a.m., start your day with the Power Hour, hosted by Bishop Dwayne Royster and Reverend Mark Kelly Tyler. At 7, it's Wake Up with WURD with Solomon Jones. At 10 a.m., it's Reality Check with Charles Ellison. Then at 1 p.m., it's The Source, hosted by Andrea Lawful Sanders on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, and the Black Women's Leadership Council on Wednesdays. At 4 p.m., it's Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Then at 7, it's Save Space with Sincerely Sarita. At 9 p.m., round up your day with Keeping It Real with the Reverend Al Sharpton. Keep your dial locked to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Streaming live on WURDradio.com and the WURD Radio app. Or watch live on WURD TV via Facebook and YouTube. WURD Radio. Independent Black Media. It's the 5th day of Kwanzaa. Habari gani. Today's principle is Nia, or purpose. So light up the center green candle and stay tuned. This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Streaming live on WURDradio.com, the WURD Radio app, or watch live on WURD TV via Facebook and YouTube. WURD Radio. Independent Black Media. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check. Phone lines are open at 215. I'm sure a lot of people want to call in, especially when we get started on vaccines. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. It's all love. It really is. I just want people to, I want the nation to get better, but I want our community to get better. I want people to stop being sick. So I think to me, it's a fairly simple conversation. It shouldn't be that complicated on something like this. Yes, but to Prince's point, I do agree. We have to keep a very close and watchful eye on situations. And that's what things like regulatory agencies are for. That's why you have a Food and Drug Administration. And so you learn about, like, for example, they have public committees that, committees that not just policymakers can join, but community activists can join or be a part of. Go to fda.gov and find out how you can be a part of those public committees or sessions that have these conversations about the efficacy or about the risks of things like a coronavirus vaccine. These conversations are out there and they're open for the public. And so, and it's incumbent upon folks like myself to help navigate you, because you won't know about those types of programs or those types of government agencies or regulatory bodies. But that's why you have, like, every country, including the United States, has a regulatory body. There are committees in Congress, in the House and the Senate. There are oversight bodies that are their whole mission is to conduct oversight of agencies like the FDA or conduct oversight of the pharmaceutical industry. So you keep a close eye on Pfizer. Yes, Pfizer did settle claim had settled the claims about the deaths of nearly a dozen Nigerian children because of a trial vaccine that they were using for meningitis. So I think each of those families of those, I think it was 11 Nigerian children who died as a result of those unethical clinical trials. I think they each received about $180,000 each for each family in Nigeria. So that happened back in 2011. So, okay, so here we are, fast forward to 2020, making sure that Pfizer learned the lessons from 2011 and they're applying them in 2020. So there are systems in place to understand, like, kind of a little bit better what's going on here and keep a watchful eye on that. Yes, I have another listener at Joy Rains Down. I appreciate that. Why are you surprised people don't trust the vaccine yet? I'm not surprised that people don't trust. I'm actually not surprised, but I'm just saying that my main point here, and she's saying nefarious things are still happening. Yes, I acknowledge that nefarious things are still happening. Dr. Moore, Black CV-19 patients being sent home from the ERs instead of being admitted. Well, you must be listening to me raising that. I've been raising that since the beginning of the pandemic and trying to get more information and actual hard data. We need to ask that question. Instead, we keep just knee-jerk celebrating the first responders and medical professionals as heroes, in the moment, and we're not having a direct question. We're not having a direct conversation about, okay, well, how are you treating Black patients when they arrive in these hospitals? Do you have capacity for? We've been asking those questions. I don't know where East Coast Mom's been, but we've been asking that constantly on this program. And she's right, it is a long list. Tuskegee wasn't a long time ago, but it was still 50 years ago. And so here we are 50 years later. So that's the whole purpose of, when we go through episodes like a Tuskegee experiment, then you learn from them, and then you ensure that, okay, well, we have more Black people in the medical research field. We have not just more Black people as doctors. Remember, we had Kevin Ahmad Jenkins, who comes on here regularly, was saying that, one of the big fields we're missing while we're telling our young people to get into STEM and to be basic doctors and engineers and lawyers, we're not telling them to get into the medical research field, which has a lot of power and influence over things like the development of vaccines. So we need to be a lot more intentional. That's all I'm saying. It's like being intentional and thoughtful about all these things here. Don't just, I don't want us to get into the habit, and with any issue, but especially this issue, what's the purpose of us just collectively being in a standing pattern like this? So we're just going to be in a standing pattern? We're going to be afraid and not move at all? We're just going to be petrified and not do anything, not vaccinate, not inoculate? not going to be able to get jobs because of that, not going to be able to travel anywhere because of that. We're going to they're going to set up systems. They already do this economically. Why are we going to let them do even more of that? And that's all I'm saying. So how do we figure a way out of this mess? That's all, I think, and I think that that's a fair point to make. So while we're keeping in mind, hey, these things have happened, Tuskegee, Pfizer, unethical clinical trials back in Nigeria, all the other pharmaceutical companies, yes, they do these things. These things are ongoing, but that's why it's all about limiting or mitigating risk. We engage in risk management in everything we do throughout our lives. Let me tell you, right now, there's certain types of salad I'm not buying right now because I know that there was an outbreak recently of E. coli with a particular brand of salad. I think it was romaine lettuce. So I'm a little bit, we're careful in the house. It's called risk management. We're careful about buying romaine lettuce. And so, okay, well, let's buy this other kind of lettuce. It's the same thing with driving a car. Or the same thing with even down to the water, do I drink water out of the sink, out of the faucet, or do I go with bottled water? Because, there's bacteria through that, so you collect as much information as you can, and then you act accordingly. You won't eliminate the risk, but you can definitely reduce it. Anyway, I don't want to go drone on because I know that there are other callers. Let me go to Maurice out of Southwest who's calling in for a reality check. Maurice?
Believe what you're saying, man. I have more respect for you than what you're doing right now. This is supposed to be talk radio. Somebody wants to come on here and blab that they don't want to take the vaccine for whatever reason. This is opinion radio. You sound like you're
but Maurice, but okay, the more people who do that, we're never going to end the pandemic because that becomes a risk to everyone else. People don't understand. That is the missing piece to this whole discussion. You cannot achieve national or global immunity if you got a whole bunch of people opting out. It's something that if people are opting out of it, it's going to cause it to become more severe. It's going to be a bigger problem. I'm not going to equivocate on that. I've had this conversation before the pandemic where we were talking about school vaccinations and anti-vaxxers. So it's like, either you want this thing to end or not.
Charles, all I was saying is people have different opinions, and you're trying to block them.
I'm not trying to block anything.
Yes, you are.
I'm not trying to block anything. I'm not trying to block anything. It's either you want better public health. I'm not going to sit on this program, and I'm not going to allow the dominance of an opinion that's going to put people's lives at risk. I'm not going to do that.
Charles,
so that's my prerogative right now.
Charles.
It puts people's lives at risk. But go ahead.
All right, Charles. That's not for you to do, Charles. That's not for you to do. This is opinion radio.
No. Don't do that, Maurice. Don't do that, Maurice. It's my responsibility not to let disinformation fester on this radio program or on this radio station. That's WURD's mission. We don't peddle in the cottage industry of misinformation. We don't do that. We don't do that. We're better than that. So no, that is my responsibility. I have to stop you there on that one.
You correct them. That's all I'm saying. You just correct
That's what I'm
them,
doing.
just like you're saying right now. But for you to stop communication, that means this is not Black Talk Radio. This is Charles Talk Radio.
That's not the case at all. I disagree. Maurice, bye. Hey, listen, Happy New Year to you. Bye. Let me go on to Hakeem. Hakeem hung up. Let me go to Joseph now. Yeah, Joseph, I think, is joining us for a reality check. Joseph?
Joseph from Massachusetts. Could you hear me, Mr. Ellison?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I ain't going to get your nerve up. I'm going to take my vaccine because President Trump said it's safe, so I believe him.
So President Trump did not say that the vaccine, he's not been doing anything with respect to the vaccine.
Okay,
so let's stop that there. Like I said, I'm blocking things. I'm not going to peddle in deliberate disinformation and lies. President Trump pretty much damn near created the pandemic. We know that. And he has not done anything. That's why why we are where we are now, is because of him. So I appreciate the fact that you are going to follow public health guidelines, Joseph, but don't throw that lie out there that President Trump has been responsible or managed this correctly. So go on.
I'm not talking vaccine. I'm going to take the shot. I don't want to talk that conspiracy stuff because it gets your nerve up. I understand.
Okay,
could you hear me? You still
go
there?
Ahead.
Yeah, what I want to talk is why we in the bottom, why we going to stay in the bottom. You know, you ever heard the term, gentlemen, choose your weapon? In political term, I'm talking. You ever heard that saying?
Yeah, I've heard that saying.
I read all kind of great leaders, all everything. W.E.B. Du Bois, Paul Robeson. I read like 5 books. Fidel Castro, Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture, Vladimir Lenin, Vladimir Putin. No, I never read Vladimir Putin. Joseph Lenin. You know what? You know what the problem is, Mr. Ellison? You talk about making good scholars, but you know you're familiar with W.E.B. Du Bois.
I am. Yeah, I've read his books.
You know what he said about Marcus Garvey? I read Marcus Garvey too. He said he was the most dangerous black man in America. You know why he said that? I see what he mean by it. That's all our radio hosts talk about is Marcus Garvey, right? If you want the young people to be scholars, they should know everybody. That's why the Harlem Renaissance in the 1920s and 30s was so successful. That's why the 60s was so... Huh?
No, I agree. Yeah.
You heard of Bayard Rustin, right?
I have.
He single-handedly with A. Philip Randolph organized a march in Washington, civil rights march in Washington, D.C. in August 1964. He was gay, a communist, and an atheist. Do you know of any black leader who's an atheist now? Yeah, well, that's what our problem is. The people, we are picking our own leaders. The people picking out here, they give us religion to keep our docile, right? That's why W.E. Du Bois said Marcus Garvey was the most dangerous black man in America. I like Marcus Garvey, but he said that because it made sense. That he's talking the same stuff white supremacy talk, black nationalism, black race superiority, black race superiority, right? And that's what the enemy wants us to do. You should always check out what the enemy wants us to do. And Marcus Garvey fits in that category for black people to talk about Pan-Africanism. But like the old saying go, I didn't have to run from the Ku Klux Klan, but I had to run from a black man. The old black person will knock you down because they're brainwashed with this Marcus Garvey stuff.
Got it.
Where we should go
Joseph, I some real good points. I got to let you go, Joseph, because I want to make sure I make room for other callers here. But no, I make some real good points, and thanks for the refresh on that. Let me go to Calvin out of Delaware, who's calling in for a reality check. He's been waiting patiently. Calvin.
How are you doing today?
Hey, how are you doing?
Good. You know, I didn't want to talk about the vaccine and nothing like that. You know, this whole thing with the diplomatic immunity, you know, where, the cops are just killing black and brown people. I mean, it's just, you were saying earlier about, something to look for, like projections for 2021, but something really has to be done about that because these situations, I know you said a couple of months ago about how some of the smaller cities are having these police officers take out insurance so that, these situations where if they happen, it's coming out of their pocket. It's not coming out of the people who didn't have anything to do with it, who paying the taxes, having to basically pay this restitution or compensations to to these families. But I just like regarding the Congressional Black Caucus, what is their opinion about that? What are they doing about that? That or the fact that the police officers continue to get away with shooting us. What is their take on that?
Right. They had put together, the Congressional Black Caucus said earlier on, and we had the Congressional Black Caucus chair on here to talk about that. They had put together this comprehensive criminal justice reform / police misconduct legislative package together, because if it's something that the Supreme Court won't rule on correctly, then it's definitely something that Congress can legislate on, removing that qualified immunity. And so, but they haven't really been that aggressive on. Let's see what because you got a new Congressional Black Caucus chair, and so let's see what the focus is going to be. And that's the problem. One of the problems I feel with the Congressional Black Caucus is that they change leadership up too fast, too much. They only do 2-year terms, which is based on regular House terms, and they all have different perspectives and different priorities. The issues that were important to the previous Congressional Black Caucus chair may be important to the new one. So let's see. But I do agree with you. I think that that's one of those big kind of missed issues. It's a very complex issue. You know, even the name itself sounds very complicated. So it's a lot of people miss it, or they don't understand it, or they don't want to get in. And we need to talk more about it and help people understand it. But I do believe I'd like to press on that more. Professional liability insurance for police officers, same thing as you have malpractice insurance for doctors, is something that should be pursued. Because then it's their pockets and it's also their jobs on the line. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know it's going to be a tough nut to crack because, I mean, you know, the political implications, you know, with the NRA and the FOP and these police unions across the country, but, you know, something really has to be done about that because it's not going to change until it comes out of their pocketbook. It's not going to change. It seems to me like it's like every other day you're hearing about something across America, you know, where it's instances where these trumped up charges, where someone is got shot, you know, and then like I was listening to Solomon Jones earlier this morning about the Tamir Rice, you know, the officers got off, you know, the situation out there in Kentucky where I think the cops got fired, but no one's in jail. I mean, you know, but just wanted to just say that. It was on my heart.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, thanks so much. And I think it's definitely something that we'll continue to pursue and talk about and discuss. Let me take a quick break. Let me see here. I think we have Derek out of North Philly. Hold on one moment. Also, I think, okay, yeah, Derek out of North Philly, hold on. Phone lines remain to be open at 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. So phone lines are open until the wrap of this Wednesday edition of Reality Check, 215-634-8065. I do appreciate the spirit of discussion, though. So I appreciate you. I do appreciate folks calling in and challenging me on this question regarding vaccine. I think we do need to have that discussion. But 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. So let's take a break. We'll be right back.
Family caregiving can be rewarding and challenging. Family and friends are the backbones of America's care system for older Americans and loved ones to live at home. African American family caregivers care for a loved one for an average of 5 years and help with medical and nursing tasks for over 30 hours a week. But now caregiving may be harder than ever. AARP has information and online communities of other caregivers. Learn more at aarp.org/caregiving.
This message is from the Philadelphia Department of Public Health. COVID-19 is still a threat in our communities, but we can all do something simple to help stop the spread. It's critically important to wear a mask or face covering whenever you're in public or around others. Yes, even while social distancing. Wearing a mask shows you care for yourself and your community and is essential to slowing the spread of COVID-19. So love yourself, love your neighbors, wear a mask.
The WURD Radio Newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting WURDradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on WURD Radio, messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese, exclusive articles and multimedia content, and resources. Stay informed with the WURD Radio Newsletter. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
Okay, welcome back to Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app, 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. East Coast Mom, some good points here, but definitely points of challenge. At Joy Rains Down is touching base through Twitter. She's listening, and I appreciate you listening in, though, Joy. She's saying she's responding to earlier comments. Some countries have ended the pandemic in their country before the vaccine. I don't know about countries who have ended the pandemic, but I know countries who have very, very limited and have been able to contain their cases of pandemic, particularly on the African continent. Countries have done very well over there compared to European countries, Western countries, and even some Asian countries. All we need is masking up and hand washing, social distancing. This is a morals issue. Americans are selfish and don't care that they are spreading death to others. Vaccines may not prevent it. So even the countries that are doing well as far as containment, even in Africa, like Ghana, for example, they're ordering vaccines. They're ordering coronavirus vaccines. They're engaged in risk management. All governments, all responsible governments, understand that at the end of the day, they still have to inoculate, just like they inoculate for all sorts of other deadly diseases that human civilization has had to deal with throughout time. And that's why we have medical research and science. More of us need to get into medical research and science to ensure that our voices are there and that we're the ones making the decisions. We're the ones developing the vaccines. For example, like, Dr. Fauci likes to parade, sister around about how she had a hand in developing the vaccine, but and making sure that we're ones also who are highly engaged and putting pressure on those government institutions and regulatory bodies and on those policymakers, and making sure we're keeping a watchful eye on how those vaccines are being developed, how they are being distributed. But even the governments that are containing this, even back in places like where our ancestors are from, in Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, other places, there's some places in Africa that aren't doing so good, like South Africa is, I think is at 1 million cases, and that's a much smaller country than the United States, but they're having a real hard time at it right now as far as COVID-19 is concerned. And they're also one of the countries it was South Africa, England, now the United States that have been reporting mutated coronavirus. Now it's getting into mutated form because it's been festering on for so long. So I do agree with Joy in the sense that, yes, Americans are selfish. That's another reason why we are where we are now. So, either we get inoculated or not. It's unsustainable governance and public policy and just management and I know this, I'm saying this as someone who used to work in the public health crisis response field. We get into dangerous territory when we start letting people opt out of inoculation, or we say, oh, this is just opinion. No, this is just based on just the medical research and the facts and the science, which as a society, especially over the past few years, we veered away from. We need to get back to that. If we had a better understanding of the science of all of this, we were more scientifically literate, this wouldn't be such a hard discussion to have. But now it is. So we have to figure out, it's all about the big question here is not about whether or not we take the vaccine. The big question here is, how do we manage the risk? How do we manage the risk? How do we manage the risk better, so to make sure people don't get hurt or people aren't experimented on, et cetera. And that's what some people already are out there doing. And there are also ways in which we can better do that. It's called risk management. It's an actual concept. And so there are some people who actually make a whole career out of it, risk management. Okay, 215-634-8065, toll free, 866-361-0900. I'll go to Derek out of North Philly, who's calling in for a reality check. Derek?
Good afternoon, Charles. Thank you for allowing me to have a reality check.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you, sir.
Love, you're welcome, my brother. Love, peace, blessing, and prosperity to you as well, whether I agree with you or not.
All right, thank you. You too.
I mean that. And I like to say, Charles, Martin Luther King Jr. said, black supremacy is as evil as white supremacy. So
I remember that.
That keeps me balanced when it comes down to certain conversations. The other thing that I wanted to speak on is the pandemic feelings that people are sharing. Me personally, Charles, I'd be glad when this COVID-19 becomes something similar to, I don't know, the flu, whereas, it's your choice whether you want to have it each year or not. That would be your choice. And so with COVID-19, my feelings is that some people really, really need to take it. And maybe 94.5 is good for them, will work for them. But because of this COVID-19 is mutating, we don't really know if the shots that's being taken will be effective for that. But that being said, I would like to reiterate that some people really need to take the shot. Now, me personally, for myself, I don't need to take the shot right now. I'm not saying I wouldn't take the shot, but I feel that there's some people need it more than I do, and I'm going to wait a little while. And since this thing is mutating, you know, maybe by that time we'll have something that's 100%.
Mm-hmm. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, no, I think there's a reason, and you're absolutely right. The mutation is having a lot of folks in the medical field and a lot of scientists and researchers worried. You know, they're worried about how I think we had, you know, when we had Dr. Colbert on up at the University of Chicago ER, who came on, he comes on regularly, and even we had, I think Dr. Ivan Walks, when we had him on last time, and we'll bring him back on. You know, they were saying, yeah, there's some concerns, like, will this new mutation, will we be able to eliminate it with the current coronavirus vaccine? There's still some questions. Another thing too is that a lot of this is fast moving, so we still have to collect more data about the long-term effects of any of this, of anything that we're discussing, and so we're still going to have to wait a while. A lot of this too is a waiting game. So fair enough. No, I think Derek, you make some good points. You want to go ahead and you know, I like where you're headed. I like that conversation though, Derek. I'm not going to, you know, earlier I know some people are asking me, like, you know, why I had to, you know, get a little testy with one other previous caller. I'm fine having debates. I'm cool with having debates. But, you know, don't come on this program trying to cuss me out. Like, let's have a civil debate. No, seriously. Like, you know, just be respectful when you coming on. Don't be coming on here trying to, like, you know, so I mean, we can have it, but I think the points you're making, Derek, are fair, including some points some other people are making. Go ahead, Derek.
And Charles, I think the way how you handle it is fine, because it's not like you are just cutting people off and not letting them say what they want to say freely. So you, but at the same time, I understand your position, like you understand mine, and like I said, love, peace, blessings, and prosperity, whether I agree with you or not.
Right, that's right. Peace and prosperity back at you, brother. I appreciate you. Happy Kwanzaa, Happy New Year to you. I'm gonna let you go so I can take some of these other calls, but thanks for that point. Let me go to Mama D out of West Philly, calling for a reality check. Mama D.
Peace and blessings, my dear. How art thou?
Peace. How you doing? All right, sister.
Pretty good, thank you, all things considered. And as you and I and all the rest know, there's an awful lot going on these days. However, I would like to share some information with you, my dear, because I'm going to say this from the top, and this is why I took the time out to call. I have a lot of respect for you, and I admire the way that you bring us so much vital and important information over time. I would like, if possible, when I finish talking, if you would put me back to the producer so that I could get them some information to write down. I want first if he's
are you real quick? I'm sorry, Mama D. Are you able to? Do you email? Can you email me?
No, I really can't. I'm an elder, and you know we don't have all that.
I'm sorry. Okay.
You know.
Okay. Well, definitely before you go, and I'll tell Jordan is kind of sitting in for Troy at the moment. Troy had to step out, but Jordan, if you could take Mama D's contact info. I don't want you to give it over the air, Mama D, but definitely. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Right. I'm going to say this now. Maybe he'll be able to write it, and I'm pretty sure you would remember it. You can take your phone, you know, later today when you get off the air, you have a moment, and just say to it, Secret Vaccine Court. Secret Vaccine Court. Anybody can do that. That will bring up the information on the secret vaccine court that exists right now in this nation for many years under the feds, where people have gone and continue to go for injuries from vaccines, injuries and deaths and things of that nature. And this goes way back. I want people to be able to see this for themselves and not just, you know, take my word for it. The other thing is, and
I think you are absolutely right. There is a federal vaccine court.
That's right.
There's a national vaccine injury compensation program, and there have been payouts from that so far since that's been in existence. I think about $4 billion worth of vaccine compensation. So and there've been about total payouts since 1989. There have been 6,305 injury and death claims that have been compensated. These are negotiated settlements. 11,200 claims have been dismissed, and 2,751. Those are the greatest number of compensated claims resulting from flu shots. So that's so there is a federal. Thank you for that. There's a federal vaccine.
You're welcome. because I felt like I had to at least share that with you. But I have a couple more things to say, if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
There's a book, and like when you ask the Creator to use you, the information comes. That's the way I can say it. Right here on the past December 22nd, I received information. There's a book out, and I'm not doing this to advertise the book, but so that people can get the information. The title of the book is The Price of Panic. The Price of Panic. And the author's name is Douglas Axe. And in this book, which just came out recently, he speaks about the COVID, flus, polio, and how millions of children in India were infected by the vaccine with polio. They have pictures of them, and Bill Gates and some of his cohorts were involved in these things and others. But the bottom line is we need to keep up with our own folks, like our Dr. Paul Hopkins, who comes on WURD, Dr. Frederick Douglass Burton, who comes on WURD with Cody and Vicki on Saturday mornings. He calls in at 8 o'clock and answers the questions that our people might have. We do have something available set up by the Creator, and that is, first of all, to keep our immune systems built up, to understand how the body works, because in too many cases, the medical system as it exists today does not deal with these things first. And too often it's about the money. We should be learning in grammar school, first and second grade, how the body works, what we need to do as far as healthy food and all of these things to keep it right. And then you wouldn't have Alka-Seltzer, Bromo-Seltzer, Maalox, citrated magnesia, milk of magnesia. On both sides of the aisle, all of these drugs and chemicals that they are making gazillion dollars off of us, if we only know how the Creator set up.
I do, Mama D, I'm gonna let you go because I want to bring on some other calls. I do agree with you in that, and that's one of the things we occasionally talk about. We don't focus as much on wellness on this program as other programs do. It's not as much of my lane. I don't claim to be an expert in it, so I'm a bit cautious about having lots of conversation on this program, because I know that it's not a field that but it's one thing that we do occasionally talk about, the importance of wellness. And also there is a big, vast, multi-billion-dollar industry that's based off keeping people sick. Totally agree with that. However, I think, we got just some caution there. I have heard about The Price of Panic. It is something I have not read, but I have heard about it. And I know, just some other fields, folks, peers of the co-authors of Jay Richards, William Briggs, and Douglas Axe, they co-authored this book, The Price of Panic, How the Tyranny of Experts Turned a Pandemic into a Catastrophe. It wasn't a tyranny of experts. It was mismanagement from the top that created the pandemic. But there are peers within that medical and science field that have been having some issues and have been peer researching some of the claims that are made by, I think it's overall philosophically, it's a good point. Yeah, there is an economy that is based off disaster. But that goes back to that earlier conversation I was having about risk management. It's, I don't want to take up too much time kind of talking about that. So I need to go to Leroy out of Germantown, who's calling in for a reality check, because I know people are waiting patiently. Leroy?
Yes, Abargani.
Abargani.
Nia Abargani. Thank you, Charles. I talked with one of the doctors you brought on, and I asked him a pointed question, and I agree with a lot of what folks have said. I love Brother Paul, Dr. Paul, and I love Frederick Douglass Burton, and I listen. But I had to do some research for myself. I talked to one of the doctors you brought on, and I asked him pointedly about sickle cell, because I will be 74 next year, and I'm living with sickle cell disease.
Okay.
And so I am very aware of things that go into my body, and I'm very cautious about, because I understand America.
Yeah.
So the doctor, and I asked him about sickle cell, he said that people are looking into it. And so I did some research on my own. I'm part of the board of the Sickle Cell Disease Association here in Philadelphia, and had been part of the national board.
Okay.
And so I queried them. And the National Board has put out a statement, and there's several doctors, a group of doctors headed by Dr. Frimpong from Philadelphia, and he's a Ghanaian, and he's renowned throughout the world, and Dr. Whitley, who is at CHOP also, and he's known and been part of the Sickle Cell Disease Association for years. And they finally put out a statement that said, and I talked to them, and they said that sickle cell the pandemic or novavirus would wipe me out. I'm old with sickle cell, and the ramifications of me catching.
I didn't catch that. I'm sorry, Mr. Leroy. Sickle cell would what with coronavirus? I missed. There was something where you kind of fell out. But what is that statement again?
Coronavirus would wipe me out. Probably.
Okay. Yeah, coronavirus. Yeah, sickle cell. Folks with sickle cell are at high risk when they are infected with coronavirus with COVID-19. Correct.
And because I fit in a couple high categories, I'm 70-something, 74 with sickle cell. It would be almost a death sentence if I caught coronavirus.
Right.
And he said that there are some side effects of the virus, of the vaccine, but they pale in comparison to what would happen if I got the virus itself.
Correct. Correct.
And so I decided, after looking at all these people, I do Mama D and all that, I do a lot of reading. I'm going to take the vaccine.
Okay.
And I can't tell anybody else what to do, but I can suggest that people look it up for themselves, talk to some people that they find credible,
right,
and follow that. If you want to find the statement from Dr. Frimpong and Whitley and several of the doctors who some have sickle cell themselves, you can look it up on the Sickle Cell Disease Association of America, the National Board. And that statement, we sent it over to Sarah at the station, and I believe it went over to several others at the station. But you can look it up.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you for that, Mr. Leroy. Thank you for sharing that too. And I think that's the way we're going to have to go about it. That's what Mr. Leroy did, or what he just explained just now, is a perfect example of risk management. That's risk management step by step. And so it's just like when we were having the conversation earlier on in the election cycle about voting, and people will come on here like, well, I ain't voting, and what's about, and I shut that down. I shut that conversation down. I'm not tolerating blanket statements about things as consequential and existential as voting. I didn't entertain it and shut it down, and then we got through that. This kind of some of that model sort of applies to this vaccine conversation, because we're talking, this is another life and death, a real life and death situation, where just like Mr. Leroy was saying, he has sickle cell anemia and he's at higher risk. And so the side effects of the vaccine pale they pale in comparison to what he would have to deal with if he were to get infected with coronavirus. So he did the research. So that's what we do. We can definitely be skeptical. I'm all for skepticism and cynicism, but let's be smart about it, and let's engage in risk management the way that he's going about it, and others. Okay, let's take a break. Let me also, Scott out of West and George out of Center City, I think. Hold on just one moment. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Hey Philly, I'm Councilmember Catherine Gilmore Richardson. As the holidays approach, we've all heard the news. A vaccine for COVID-19 is here. However, now is not the time to let our guard down. As COVID-19 continues to spread, keep wearing your mask, practice social distancing, and avoid large get-togethers. It will take time before we all get vaccinated. Until then, keep yourself, your family, and community safe. We will get through this pandemic together. Stay safe and stop the spread.
This WURD Kwanzaa vignette is brought to you by the Curtis Institute of Music. Habari Gani from WURD Radio. The 7 days of Kwanzaa are dedicated to the Nguzo Saba, or the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. Today is the 5th day of Kwanzaa, Nia, or purpose. Today is a great day to map out how you will use the new year to advance your mind, body, spirit, family, and community. Look at the people in your life who bring positivity, optimism, and a sense of purpose, and create opportunities to express your appreciation for them this year. Also, think about how you can better serve others, even from a distance, as you have a very important role in the lives of those around you. Finally, spend some time with the young people in your life, and come up with a creative way for them to outline the things they'd like to accomplish this year. For more information about Kwanzaa, visit wordradio.com. This WURD Kwanzaa vignette was brought to you by the Curtis Institute of Music. The Curtis Institute of Music educates and trains exceptional young musicians. And to ensure that admissions are based solely on artistic promise, Curtis makes an investment in each admitted student so that no tuition is charged for their studies. Meet Curtis today at curtis.edu.
Listen to Laborers Live.
We created the weekend. We created the 40-hour work week. We just want enough to feed our family, be able to send our children to college, and let our next generation do better than we did.
To people that might have forgot how important unionism is in a country like the United States. People now infringing on our 8-hour workday, kind of work people more than 8 hours without overtime, kind of work people without benefits. In the long run, everybody's getting a fat paycheck except the worker. So this is really a wake-up call for America.
The struggle is continuous. Tune in to Laborers Live every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. Sponsored by LESIT, the Laborers Employers Cooperation Education Trust of the Laborers District Council of Philadelphia and vicinity.
Local 332, Sam Staten Jr. Business Manager. Local 57, Esteban Vera Business Manager. Local 135, Dan Woodall Jr. Business Manager. Local 413, James Harper Jr. Business Manager. The Laborers District Council, Ryan Boyer Business Manager, and Tony Staten, Executive Director of LESIT.
He's back.
This is Reverend Al Sharpton.
Keeping it real with the Reverend Al Sharpton.
In times like these, we have to stay connected.
At a brand new time, Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. till midnight.
I'm excited that Keeping It Real returns to WURD.
Keeping it real with the Reverend Al Sharpton. Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. till midnight. This program is pre-recorded. No phone calls, please.
Keep it locked to WURD 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
Okay, welcome back to Reality Check. Phone lines are open, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Let's see how we can get through George out of Center City, and then afterwards Alanian out of Nicetown as we hurdle towards the end of this Wednesday edition, this midweek edition of Reality Check. George, what's good?
Fine, Charles. How are you?
All
You
right.
know, Charles, what Prince was saying made a lot of sense. That if you bring them on, and let me back up a minute. First of all, I think you're doing a real good job on this COVID-19 or whatever number it is or whatever they call it. Because the way you're explaining it, listen, if somebody want a new resident and, you know, a permanent resident, that's on them. You know, if you don't want to take the vaccine, I don't think nobody should force you or have that type of conversation of convincing you elsewise. Just do whatever it is, you catch it, and you check out, you know where you'll be. Everybody know where to find you at. But don't do yourself a favor and don't be infecting everybody else. You know, these people always come on with this foolishness telling you about what happened in Tuskegee. How you know? They can't even read about that. That's how long it's been. And none of those people are around to tell you. People really get me with telling you all these old war stories about this, that, and the others. Come up to date what's happening now. You know, what's going on now about the virus. They came up with not a cure, but some way to make you somewhat safe, and you're still making excuses. Listen, if you don't want to wear a face mask and if you don't want to take the virus, that's on you. Now,
Just stay home. Stay home. Just keep your butt home. Like, stay inside, really. Like, seriously, stay home. Stay home. If you don't want to do what was needed to do. But go ahead. Sorry, George. Go ahead. Finish up.
So, you know, what Prince was saying is right, Charles, because you got to be around these people to understand. The best thing that ever happened to a lot of these elected officials is this Zoom and this pandemic. Zoom means that they don't have to deal with their constituents, and they got a good excuse not to be in their office, and they don't have to do no work to get a free paycheck. That's why all of them beginning to look like Gordo. You know, they really are. So you got to understand that what he was saying, maybe people took it the wrong way. He's saying that if you bring them on, and I hope you do more of it in, you know, this new year, is to hold them accountable. You know, they come on here, you ask them a question, they just eat up the clock. They answer everything but what you ask them. You know, they don't do it on white shows. When they go down the dial, they kiss up, answer every question there is to answer. But when they come to a black-owned station and dealing with their own, they're the worst. They sit there and give you all this heat and horn and scratching when they don't scratch, you know, coughing when their throat is cleared already. It's totally disrespectful. And if you notice, Charles, just listen. Every time these elected officials come on, they pretty much disrespectful to the host, and the host tolerates it. They tolerate that foolishness, you know, and it's a shame. I don't think Sarah would want, you know, people to be having the station disrespected. This is one of the few African-American stations left in this country, and it's the most disrespected station by our own people. They feel as though they don't have to answer questions. They come on here, they want a high five. They only talk about what they want to talk about, give you a preemptive script. Listen, these are the only questions you can ask me, you know, or we're not going to come. Well, I don't know who they think they are to say, you know, that they're not going to come on your show or any other show on URD. I mean, listen, people better wake up, because these elected officials get $100 and some thousand a year, nice package deal, and y'all just keep kissing up to them, and they keep disrespecting you, and then you wonder why you don't get anything. I'm okay. I tell people that all the time, because one way or the other, I'm going to get what I want to get. If I don't get it from that one, I get it from the next one. And the only reason that they really, it's like they fear you and they respect you, so therefore you get what you want for your people. Keep kissing up and see what you get. Every time you turn around. That's why the police commissioner don't come nowhere, don't go nowhere. Because why? Everybody keep wanting a selfie with her, a picture. Oh, let's get a picture. Then they got it on Facebook and all that stupid stuff.
I have to admit, George, I have to admit, I'm going to let you go too, George, but I have to admit, I mean, you make a good point always on that. You've got to, especially when you get into contact with elected officials, they're not celebrities. Elected officials are not celebrities. Like, you know, people have got to stop getting starstruck around public servants and policymakers, people who are supposed to be doing the public good and are supposed to be stewards of the public finances. These are not celebrities. They have been elected, or they have been appointed to do specific jobs and to complete specific tasks. And you have to hold them accountable when you get into those moments with them, or those conversations with them, or, you know, if you don't have anything to say, just understand that their whole mission is to work for you. And so we have a bad habit with that. I agree with George on that. Like, it's not a moment to take selfies and everything and to do, like, I don't, maybe it's because I've worked around a lot of, I don't normally get starstruck, but use that as an opportunity. You don't have to, you know, you don't get into a civil, polite conversation with them. I don't think that there's a need for us to be calling them out and cussing them out and all that and talking over them. That's not going to get us anywhere. But use that as an opportunity. It may be an opportunity for you to engage them about an issue that's important to you and to people on your block. Let me go to Olanian out of Nicetown, who's calling in for a reality check. Olanian?
Greetings.
Greetings, sir.
I want to say something about, oh gosh, I hear an echo.
Yeah, go ahead, sir. How you doing, sir? Go ahead, brother.
I disagree with one of your last callers who said that black supremacy is as bad as white supremacy.
He was quoting or paraphrasing Dr. King, right?
It is not as bad because, drum roll, ain't no black woman going to call police on a white man who is watching birds in New York City. No white police officer will easily rape any white woman. I'm sorry, no black police officer will easily rape any white woman in the police station. No black managed school system is here to help white students flunk math and science and drop out of high school. No black managed medical field will allow white people to have pre-existing conditions that will exponentiate the growth of COVID-19 in white people more than it does in black people. Enough. I won't go to letter Z. But you know, much of the small powers that blacks who believe in supremacy have, here they ain't no black supremacy. That's all I want to say today, dude.
All right, Alani, no, I appreciate you. Thanks so much. I'm sure that previous caller appreciates that comment as well. You know, this is why. Let's just real quick before we close out. The whole purpose here is we're trying to approach herd immunity, and so you need about 70% of the U.S. population to take the vaccine in order for the population. This is the science on this. And actually, this science is from the Dean of Public Health Integration at Michigan State University, who's a black woman, Deborah Fur Holden, and she talks about this. And the reason I'm actually working on trying to get her on, if not by tomorrow, then next week. But she's saying that about 70% of people in the U.S. need to take the vaccine for the population to reach herd immunity. Whites are about 60% of the population. Right now, 68% of white people in surveys are saying that we're willing to take the COVID vaccine, but if that holds up, then that would get you to 42% of the American population getting vaccinated. So now we get the black people, African Americans. African Americans make up 13%. That's the official. I think it's a little bit more of the population. But if you have 60% right now, the latest polling shows that 60% of black people are refusing to take the vaccine. You're not going to reach that 70% threshold. The same thing with Latinos. They're 18% of the population. 32% of Latinos are saying that they'll reject the COVID vaccine. So you add the 40 to 50% rejection rates among other population groups, and you don't have any herd immunity. Then the pandemic just keeps going. Then we're here like 10 years from now, and it's either we're living in the same kind of holding pattern, or actually it gets a lot worse, and it gets a lot more freakish and science fiction-like, because we've got like a whole bunch of mutated versions of the coronavirus, you know, that have spiraled out of control because people aren't willing to get inoculated. So we've got to reach 70% inoculation in order to achieve what's called herd immunity. That's what herd immunity is all about. Herd immunity is not, oh, let's just not do any vaccine, or let's not mask up and let's do survival of the fittest and see who survives and who doesn't. And then, you know, it'll just go away. That's not herd immunity. That's not why scientists use that term herd immunity. Herd immunity is when a large chunk of the population, nearly 3/4 of a population, gets inoculated. Then you achieve herd immunity. Then the pandemic ends. And then, you know, we just go on, you know, trying to live life the best we can. All right, that wraps this. We can talk about it more tomorrow. That wraps this Wednesday, midweek edition of Reality Check. Thanks so much for the spirited discussion. Really appreciate that. I've got to get a glass of water, in fact, because my throat is dry from all the talk, but I appreciate it. Appreciate you. Philly, everyone. Oh, Jordan Booth had to stand in for Troy Wilmore. Appreciate you at the Board of Steel. We're headed into, I think, Brother Shamari, I think is coming up next. Am I not right, Jordan? Yeah, Brother Shamari is coming up next. We're going to talk more about, have that more of that special edition Kwanzaa celebration here on WURD. Philly and the rest of folks beyond, please stay sharp, stay smart, and more importantly, stay safe out there. God willing, I'll see you tomorrow, Thursday, 10 a.m. sharp. Take care.